Mr. West. I'm actually glad to see you. It saves me the trouble of having to send for you.
You'll never get credit for my discovery. Who's going to believe a talking head? Get a job in a sideshow.
This is the emergency podcast system. This is not a test. Movies are bombing all over the country. They are posing as movies you already know. They may already be in your theaters, your neighbor's home, or even your own. Do not panic. Specialists have been dispatched. They will help you identify these pretenders and defend you against this invasion of the remake. Please stand by for further instructions.
Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast, 31 Days of Horror Special, Part 1.
Part 1?
Yeah.
Part 1.
So many movies.
So many movies. 31 movies, horror movies, that we've never seen before over 31 days of October, and we're going to talk to you about them. This episode, we're going to be doing the first 16 of our 31, and then in part 2, we will continue with our final 2 weeks. And this has become our tradition, our 4th annual 31 Days of Horror. It's sometimes a trial at this point, because we are still in the midst of our final week as of this recording. This is where things can, like, you might find your second wind, or you might succumb to exhaustion.
Or we fight because we've watched each other's movies.
Yeah. This year is that might be my pattern.
Yeah.
There's always an unintended pattern in the movies sometimes, where you'll find an unintended theme along the way. Mine is Sam thieving my movies, either intentionally or unintentionally.
There was only one that was on purpose.
And he taunted me with it, and I've been mad ever since. And that was his second movie.
It was the only must-see that I had this year. The only one, so yes, I went with it.
That's fair. I've got that clip lined up for later in the episode, so everybody can enjoy it along with me. And it's a weird little anomaly, I must admit. And you know what I got to do this week?
What?
I got to go to the Calgary Philharmonic and see them perform live while watching Ghostbusters.
Sweet.
That was really cool. It was a neat experience.
Yeah, it's becoming a thing. The Star Wars score is being done a lot with the movie, live with the movie and stuff.
Well, I get it. I mean, these live orchestras, I think the arts are kind of fading with the youth. Come on, get with it, fucking people.
Yeah.
Doing this geek thing is attracting people to the arts. And this is kind of how they pay the bills. And it's also really fucking fun for them to do, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And to be honest, probably like some film scores, especially like, I know they've done it with Lord of the Rings or whatnot, or The Hobbit, and those film scores can be pretty complex to play.
Challenging and amazing.
Very challenging.
And it's sort of like it's probably also bringing more light onto the effort it takes to make that sort of audio oral palette with which to dress your movies that people don't really pay attention to.
Some people don't realize how important it is to have a good score.
Yeah, and it really does highlight how well the score is. And I mean, it's not just tricky to play this music that has been scored for this film, but you're keeping it in sync with the film. And man, they were just bang on exactly where those cues would be. It was pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. And then they had an introduction from Dan Aykroyd projected on the screen because it's Dan Aykroyd. I can't be bothered to show up. And about midway, where they usually have the break, so you can go get some more alcohol. After the break, that second part was introduced by Ivan Reitman.
Nice.
It was pretty fun. I know that film backwards and forwards. Who doesn't, really?
Yeah.
I found I really wasn't paying that much attention to the film. I was trying to really watch the orchestra as a whole. So would I do it again? Maybe. I'd probably more just like, hey, are you doing a bunch of themes or whatever? I'm really tempted to go next week because they're doing just a James Bond thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like super stoked about it, but I don't know if my schedule will allow for it.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's not cheap to do. Should we Rochambeau for the who goes first?
Rochambeau?
Rock, paper, scissors, maybe?
Oh.
I guess kicking you in the balls isn't going to work.
Come on, Trisha's bigger balls than both of us.
Well, I know. Well, that's true, but I think she could also handle the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really, it's not going to work either way.
She wins, period.
In fact, let's just succumb to the inevitable and let Trish go first.
Okay, cool. But who's going after me? Just out of curiosity.
We'll just revolve around the room.
Just revolve around the room? Okay. All right. The first 7 days?
Yeah, well, we'll do the first 8 because we're doing 16.
First 8? Okay, yeah.
Because there's 31 days. So we'll do the first 8 for the first week and the next 8 for the next week. In part 2, we'll do another 8 and 7. So that's how it's going to go.
Good.
Go for it.
I'm down for that. Okay. So I'll just kind of list them off all at once and then kind of get into maybe the nuts and bolts of that.
Whatever gets you going.
Okay. All right. Number 1, Hell House LLC 3, Lake of Fire from 2019.
I've got questions.
Number 2, Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Lee from 2012.
Okay.
Number 3, Black Mountainside from 2014. Number 4, Prevenge from 2016. Number 5, Stage Fright from 1989. Mm-hmm. Number 6, Hantu Kaklima from 2018. Number 7, In the Tall Grass 2019. And number 8, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Cool. Okay. Now let's get into one by one here.
So Hell House LLC 3 is the third one in the Hell House series. The second one was abysmal.
Well, and yes, because both of you have covered these movies, the first 2, in previous 31 days. So I kind of watched the first 2 off season rather than talk about them again for a third time. And fairly recently, back in September, I watched them.
Yeah.
And I quite enjoyed the first one. I thought, okay, this is pretty good. I see what they're saying. I'd forgotten they were found footage style.
But it works.
But
Yes.
it worked. It actually, it worked once.
Yeah. I haven't seen the second one.
The
But
second one's horrible.
Bad.
Like,
Bad,
the
bad,
acting's
bad.
bad, so it doesn't come off natural. And then the story was bad.
And then there's like talking head moments with like some sort of show that they put in there.
Yeah, at least those actually work a little bit better, except they come off as people acting.
Yes.
Like, they watch like people acting. The key to acting is not look like you're acting.
No.
exactly.
No. Like, and here's the thing. If you want to be some person on a TV show and pretend like you're not like a regular person, just do the talking head thing. Just do it. Don't.
So, do they redeem themselves here?
They do, actually, I think.
Really?
I think, but maybe it's because I am comparing it to the previous one that it just seems so much better.
Well, your expectations are so fucking low after number 2.
Absolutely. But
I'm
there's
actually surprised she watched the third one after.
Yeah, I didn't
true.
want to.
It's true.
She said there was a third one. I'm like, oh God, please no.
Well, like I said, I've subscribed to Shudder because I wanted to do this for Halloween, and Shudder had it on there, and I'm like, well, Shudder's got it there, so we'll just do it. Yeah, they hired a few actual actors, so that works a lot better, and it's not too bad. The ending is, I don't know. I'm still conflicted about it, how I feel about it, but overall, they did pour, I think, a little bit more money into it and a little bit more care.
That's good. That was clear that they weren't doing either in the second one.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Not even
All
close.
right, so your next one.
The Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Lee.
This was by the owner of Rue Morgue, wasn't it?
I think so,
is
yeah.
that the one?
It's very enclosed. There's only kind of one actor for like 90% of it, and everybody else is like a voice on the phone.
Oh.
And it's very kind of claustrophobic, but it's a very...
It sounds like it's something that could have been easily done for stage.
Absolutely. And it's the metaphors in it are, I find really good. Like, there's a whole bit about like kind of grief and some mental illness, and it's sort of... I think there's like a higher theme of how this would translate over into your death. Like, it's sort of like, did the story happen? What happened there? This
sounds really similar to The Telephone with Whoopi Goldberg, which is phenomenal, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that movie. That is a good movie.
It is a really good movie.
Oh, I'll have to watch that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's not too bad. I don't know, like, it's more of a horror, like what I'd call an emotional horror.
Right.
That's still horror.
Yeah,
I think so.
Like,
got a lot of those this year.
it really got me. So that's sort of what I call an emotional
I found
horror.
even casually, if a movie gave me a jump scare, I got really angry at it.
Yeah.
Like, thankfully, I don't think I have anything on my list that overuses it, but every time it did, I'm like, motherfucker.
Yeah, I know.
They don't catch me, they just piss me off at this point. Yeah. But I get it. Sometimes you got to go for the cheap one.
Sometimes you do. And like sometimes, but it's more, this one is more kind of like claustrophobic and more is happening it. But like, you know, when I was talking about The Orphanage, when it like emotional horror where I feel despair afterwards.
Yeah.
That's what I call it.
The Orphanage is still one of the best gothic horror movies I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah.
You must see it.
That's an off-season watch for me because you guys have already done it twice. So
well, I don't think I've ever covered on the show. Trish had. I covered it years ago for when I was blogging about it.
yeah. But yeah, it's one of those movies that's...
By the way, Facebook, fuck off. You know, I'm posting for this one, and then they'll go 11 years ago, and there's a movie poster.
Oh my God.
And I realize, I'm like, and before I signed up for Facebook, I did it at least 3 more times. So, like, I'm 15 years in almost for this thing.
Wow.
Thanks for making me feel old, Facebook. You're an
Facebook
asshole.
loves to fucking do that.
Yeah,
You know what
Facebook's an asshole.
Facebook loves to give to me? Meet singles over 55 in your area. That's what it does for me.
Their market research isn't quite accurate, is it?
Nope.
My targeted ads are certainly go for my love of junk food, because I'm like, why am I getting KFC? Although there's some good fashion ones too. I get like Warren Star and stuff. So
Okay, cool.
Warren Star's pretty cool.
Sometimes they land, but other times
Yeah.
I'm just fucking mad at Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, don't throw a bucket of chicken at me.
How dare you? Don't judge me.
Okay,
Speaking of horror,
It is horror.
on to your third one. then.
Okay, Black Mountain Side, Canadian one from 2014.
I've heard really good things about this.
Yes, it's basically, it's Thing in the Canadian wilderness, essentially.
Oh.
The Thing. Yeah, but it's there's also like a steep kind of subculture bit to it, and it's like an archaeological dig. I don't know, I kind of liked it. There's a bit of claustrophobia there, a little bit of mania, people losing it, as you would if you're kind of out there. But it's so funny because it's a very isolated part, but in Canada. So they're not as isolated as Antarctica, but they're still kind of isolated.
Do you have a director for that one? I'm just kind of curious.
Oh, I can't remember. I didn't write that
okay,
down.
That's fine.
We can put it in the show notes.
No, we won't.
they're already long enough.
They're already long enough.
But no, I found it pretty good. The performances were really good. I enjoyed it.
I mean, you kind of had me at Thing in the Canadian wilderness, so
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Like I love me a winter horror. I don't know what it is about it.
Yeah.
I think it's because of the lack of sunlight, the snow, the cold.
Yeah,
It
I mean, just the
feels scarier to me.
hazards of just the environment alone, right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
scarier, ultimately.
I kind of like that about, I think it was last year I covered it with The Ritual, where it was a lot of in the cold wilderness, along
Yeah.
with being kind of this cult and creature feature movie at the same time.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Cult of Chucky, the psychiatric place, when it's snowing in the opening scenes,
Yeah.
that freaked me out too.
Yeah. Cool. All right, what's next?
Awesome. Prevenge from 2016.
This one was a comedy horror, if memory serves, wasn't it?
Yes, it is.
About
It's very good.
fear of her pregnancy or something like
Well,
that. I'm trying to recall because
no.
I've seen the trailer for this.
There's a lot to do with kind of grief and, sort of there's grief and mental illness, and like basically what happens if your kid, it's sort of like an alien creature inside you making you do things. It's very much a kind of a fear you could have as a woman. You're like going, this alien thing inside me makes me do stuff.
That's interesting.
That sounds very interesting, actually.
Yeah, and I think that was a female director who did that too. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a really great female-centric horror movie, and there's so many great voices and unique ideas coming from women in horror now, and that sounds like a perfect example of that.
It is, and it's the lead actress in it had written it and done it because she wasn't getting anything because she was hugely pregnant. So this made a really good take on it. It was
Cool.
really enjoyable
That's a neat idea.
and quite funny. And then number 5 was Stage Fright from 1989.
That's cool, because we have talked about the remake on previous 31 Days of
Yeah,
Horror.
we both did it that one year. I had to do it after you told me about it, so that was one of our double-ups 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, inevitably that happens within these things. You can't avoid it. But it's interesting, because I don't think at the time either one of us realized it was a remake.
No, I had no idea.
We may expound on that down the road in a proper comparison episode.
Here's hoping.
Tell us this one, because I have seen bits of it now in documentaries that bring it up, and Fangoria magazine, because I subscribe to that, and that big owl mask that was replaced in the later movies.
Yeah, it's very, I think from the remake, it's quite a bit different, I feel, because I think the remake was like, there was like a camp in that one. It wasn't this. It was an actual theater thing, and it also kind of touches on like theater, people just wanting to make money from like a tragedy at a theater. And it's quite good.
Is it still like just as musical as the remake was?
It really is mostly musical at the beginning, because what happens is they are rehearsing. They're rehearsing a musical about murders that had happened before.
I think that was similar in the remake.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it's like the remake has that sort of beginning, but then it sort of diverges after like the first murder is kind of discovered. It's very 80s. I enjoyed it. It's crazy. I can't really, so much was happening with it, and it's just, I don't know. I loved it though. It was so wild. And then my number 6 was Hantu Kaklima.
Can you say that 5 times fast?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so. I would want to try it. It sounds vaguely naughty the first time.
It's Malaysian, and it's the ghost of Kaklima. And it's basically, imagine a Looney Tunes cartoon as a Malaysian horror, and you'll get what Hantu Kaklima is.
I almost have one of those. Wild. Okay.
It's hilarious, and there's so many people in this. I'm like going, I want to see you in other films. I might try and dig deeper and see what else these people have been in, because it was really, really good. So silly in spots, but so wonderful.
I'm gonna have to even look up a trailer for that just to kind of picture it.
Yeah, but there's also like shades of Beetlejuice in it. It goes really
And
well.
to be honest, I don't think I've ever even seen a Malaysian horror movie, so this is like, you don't get a lot of film from that part of the world, at least accessibly.
That's the thing, is accessibly. I'm sure you get plenty of it. It's just a question of being able to get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like hints of Ghostbusters in it. Like there's so many layers in this movie.
Okay.
I hope to dig into it later if we want to do a remake of it for here, because it would be awesome. Number 7 is In the Tall Grass.
In the Tall Grass, that is also on my list. It was a Netflix original based on Stephen King and Joe Hill's short story.
And
yeah, I wanted to like it more than I did.
I know. It's the mist in a field, essentially.
Yeah, you're kind of right. Like, this couple hear this child screaming for help.
Well, no, it's not a couple. It's a brother and a sister.
Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, brother and sister.
But there's some nuance there.
Yeah, she's pregnant and split from the father, who does come looking for it later. And this tall grass, once you're in, you can't find your way out. It doesn't apply to the laws of physics
or
time. Like, if somebody arrives like 2 weeks later looking for you, you could hear them looking for you, despite the fact you might have been long dead at that point.
Or they'll pass by your dead body and then see you
might
again.
Find your own dead body.
It sounds really interesting. I haven't seen it. I skipped
ideas, it. And I gotta say, for the most part, it kept me going, but there was something weird Patrick Wilson was doing that I was not. Usually Patrick Wilson's pretty good. I did not like him in this movie. I feel
Patrick Wilson went full Marcia Gay Harden in this movie. I think that's what happened. Because, like, I love Patrick Wilson as well. I find him very enjoyable. But I mean,
granted, he was supposed to be possessed by some asteroid rock thing.
Well,
something
they seem to believe it's A, it's an asteroid rock, or B, it was been there for years, and C, they talk about, like, we're in the middle of the contiguous United States, smack dab in the middle, so of course it's going to be here. I'm like, North America's a whole fucking continent. No. If you're going to see right in the middle of something and it's the beginning of everything and anything, it doesn't go by country if it's there that long. It's not going to think about that. That's not how this shit
We're going to plan
rolls,
for a
dude.
country that might be here in 200 years or 2,000 years.
Yeah, they don't do that.
Continents separated to be what they are, so...
Yeah.
if this thing's
No.
millions of years old, that doesn't really
No,
work.
it would be much farther north.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. He was just, going full... There's so many good ideas in there. Like the idea of being lost in a field and not being able to find your way out.
Have you ever been lost in tall grass?
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Or
because
cornfield.
You get disoriented and you're not sure which way is out.
Yeah.
Cornfields aren't so bad because they tend to have rows, but like if you're like a wheat field and you get turned around, like it's hard because you can't see any landmarks. Mm-hmm. Right?
And unless you're like right under them.
Yeah.
So this has happened to both of you?
We both grew up on farms in farm country.
I haven't been in like that high of tall grass, but I've been in like kind of cornfields and kind of mazes like that, and it is unsettling.
It is very unsettling. It's very easy to get disoriented.
Yeah. Did you come across the children
No,
in the corn?
no.
Get it?
We were the children in the corn.
We were the children in the corn.
That does explain a lot.
I don't know. We're also farm kids, so children in the corn don't frighten us because we'll kick their asses.
Quit being creepy, you little fucker.
Exactly. Be like going, hey, I got a rock. Let's rock and roll, you little shit.
Nobody's going to find your body in here.
No.
Yeah. So that's a great concept of playing on that sort of natural effect of being in the tall grass for sure.
I think it was probably as effective as it was ever going to be as a movie.
Yeah.
I would have liked some different choices from Patrick Wilson.
I would have liked that. I would have liked less ancient creature, more. I would have liked more of sort of just an alien, like when you have there's the largest thing like in the world is like this giant mushroom that's growing in one area. It's one single continuous entity.
Yeah.
Make that the tall grass.
I kind of like the abandoned bowling alley bit.
I did like
where
that.
they were starting to figure out where there were actual portals within certain tufts of grass and that they might be able to find their way out that way. It's not an endless maze the whole way. They do give you a little change of scenery from time to time.
Yeah, and there's some visuals in it I really enjoy where you see people going through the grass. You can see them making their way.
Mm.
But yeah, I think it was just a wasted opportunity for some of it.
Yeah, I mean, overall, not bad. I mean, this is Vincenzo Natali, who's used to working with a small idea in one location with the cube, if you remember who he is. So.
Oh yeah, if he'd done more like cube-shaped grass, like with the grass can like do stuff to you, that would be more interesting.
There were times where the grass was doing stuff, so.
Yeah, and
but
then,
not a bad little like lower budget Netflix original.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted more and just something different with The Rock.
Yeah, it didn't quite satisfy me as much as I was hoping because I was very much looking forward to it, and I watched it like day of release on Netflix, and I guess I hyped it up a little too much in my brain.
And as soon as I saw Patrick Wilson, I'm like going, I kept thinking like Patrick Wilson is now kind of like in my head, kind of a scream queen to me.
I was thinking to say that. I'm getting a little tired of seeing him in sort of the horror
Scream
roles.
King. Yeah.
Right? Because that seems to be his thing now, and he's so much better than just being a horror guy. He needs to, I'd like to see him in more roles.
He was a villain in Aquaman.
Yeah.
He was, but he straddles both sides in the horror genre. He's been a bad guy, but in Insidious, he doesn't mean to be a bad guy. He's just a guy who's been haunted. Like, it's kind of, he does both sides in the whole horror
I'm just
genre.
afraid that he's starting to get a little pigeonholed.
I think he is.
Yeah,
a little, not entirely, but a little.
Not like Universal actors from the 40s.
Yeah.
It's we have that 80s generation of like the Freddys and Jasons and guys who were very much associated with horror, Tony Todd and Robert Englund, etc. But in the more recent years, we don't have another generation after that. So, Patrick Wilson does feel like he's kind of leading the way as far as, that's okay, I can be a horror actor, and that's fine. Like, if he's getting the work for it, and clearly he doesn't want it all the time.
He's getting work, which is the important thing. But
he must have some dirt on Blumhouse.
He must, or maybe he just enjoys
Jason Blum,
it.
what have you done that Patrick Wilson keeps getting in your movies?
Yes.
Maybe, or maybe it's maybe what Patrick Blum
He just keeps saying yes.
What does Blumhouse have on Patrick Wilson that they keeps making him go into his
Jason
movies?
Blum's like, well, I keep hiring because he works cheap.
Yeah,
and he's made me a whole lot of fucking money.
Exactly. I don't know. Maybe they just like each other. Who knows? Maybe it's a Kevin Smith thing where they just enjoy each other.
There you go. All right, next.
Okay, number 8: scary stories to tell in the dark. What I did was I just decided one day, I'm like, I want to go to out to have a theater day, and I'm like, I love the cheap theaters here. Absolutely love them. Nice cheap popcorn and good popcorn. So I went out to the Canyon Meadows and I watched it one day.
Nice.
And it's not a bad movie.
I didn't realize it was based on a YA novel series. So, and it's produced by Guillermo del Toro.
Yes.
It's not directed by him, though.
No. And there's hints of him in it. There's some bits where I just feel it was like kind of some aborted great ideas. Like, because there's one story where it's about a scarecrow, and that was the most terrifying thing in the whole movie.
And that's
it
what
would have
is.
made a whole amazing movie in and
It's
of
a
itself.
single narrative, but that's the book itself is kind of making these anthology type stories happen within the bigger narrative.
Yeah, what happens was these kids break into this old abandoned house where there was a young girl that her family just kept her locked away because she was quote unquote different. Mm-hmm. And so she used to tell kids stories, but if they came out there to listen to her stories, they'd die. And so they find this book there, and the book itself just starts writing stories about them in it. So that's sort of how that kind of comes to pass, and their stories come true. Mm-hmm. So that's how sort of they die. And there's one really gross one where I'm like, I'm surprised that was in a YA novel because it's disgusting.
It may have been amped up a little bit for an adult audience.
I don't know. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, from what I remember, was pretty graphic. It got banned a lot from what I understand.
Yeah.
Right.
Because this person wasn't afraid to he was like, kids are old enough to deal with this crap.
It's, considering how
Life is scary.
much scary stuff I saw that was directed as kids, and then, Goosebumps would come later. I was too old for Goosebumps, but, there's lots of it. There's absolutely tons of it.
That's true.
Yeah.
For creepy stuff
Goosebumps
for
is
kids.
fluff compared to this one. But it was enjoyable. All the lead kid actors were great.
Did you write them
That's
down
what-
for future casting?
I am going to. There's a couple that I've crossed across my path. Actually, one of them I did use already.
Cool.
There we go.
Okay, well, now we're into week one. Sam.
Okay, so I didn't write down years because I'm dumb like that, but I wrote down scores. How about that?
What do you mean?
Cool.
You didn't write down?
Well, I wrote them down for you, but I didn't write them
Oh.
down in my notes here. So I.
I did.
So they'll be on the list, but I'm not going to tell you what year they were.
Yeah, just look in the liner notes if you're confused about the year, because sometimes you'll come across a movie. Like, I've got movies that have the same name of another movie.
Yes.
That
Different year.
They're not even remakes; they just share the same names. So that's why I'm very specific in the liner notes with years. So if you want to find these movies, you can. I think I even have one.
The
in
right version.
Yeah, and even then, listen to what we're saying, because I think I have one on my list that there were two movies the same year with the same title.
Oh my god!
Wonderful.
I know. So it's not always easy.
No.
Yeah.
And I have one on my list here, and I think it's this for this part here. I'll find out in a second. But I had a lot of trouble finding it. I've been trying for 3 years, and I finally found it so I can watch it. But I started with Wish Upon, which Trish covered 2 years ago, I think it was.
I
Okay,
think so.
remind me about this one because I don't remember it.
This is where a girl finds a music box that grants her 7 wishes, but every time you make a wish, somebody dies.
Oh, this is
Yeah.
a monkey's paw
Type of thing, yeah,
Type of the
yeah.
button where you
Well-
wish for $1 million, but somebody's going to die when you do.
Yeah,
Yes.
there must be something paid.
Yeah, and well, I'll get a little
With
more into
Ryan
it.
Phillippe that I didn't realize was Ryan Phillippe till halfway through the film.
Yeah, no, he was good in this, actually. Movie number 2 was the Banana Splits movie. Number 3 was Summer of '84.
Okay.
Number 4 was Creep. Number 5 was All Hallows Eve. Number 6 was Devil's Gate. Number 7 was Mary, Loss of Soul.
That's a cool title. And what's number 8?
And number 8 was The Girl Next Door from
Okay.
2007. I remember the year from that one because I had so much trouble finding it.
Okay, well, let's start diving into these a little bit.
Okay, so Wish Upon, Trisha's already kind of covered it, but it's that monkey's paw, consequences for your wishes type of story. It gives them 7 wishes, though, instead of 3.
Yeah.
It was a good story, and the acting was solid. Like, it was actually really solidly acted. I love the fact that, spoiler alert, it doesn't have the happy ending. I love movies that do that to you, where it's like, well, you think it's resolved, and then something tragic happens and it's not as happy as you think it was. I really enjoy the concept of choice versus desire and the selfishness and greed that comes into a story like this, where it's like, well, I don't care about the consequences. This is what I want, and I'm going to do what I want to get that.
What did you think about sort of a vengeance thing where you make a wish for vengeance, but it becomes even more horrifying than you thought you would be?
I enjoyed that part of it. That was something that was really quite good about it, right? And I mean, her final wish, there's going to be consequences because that's the way that it works. but I like the way that the consequences catch you a little bit off guard.
Yes.
At the end of the film there, where you think everything's all right and you're like, oh, well, fuck, that's a waste of time. And then all of a sudden, boom, there's consequences, and they're quite shocking. The Banana Splits.
The Banana Splits movie, where this is the movie when you can't get the license to Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yes.
See, and this was sort of on my list, but then I knew you guys were kind of going for it, so I didn't do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were going. When I had heard about it before Sam had, and then I was like, Amazon? Buy that. Yeah. I had it on pre-order, and then I was really upset when Sam actually discovered it, but he is our social media guru, so keeping it a secret from him proved impossible.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it turns out he's a way big... I'm not a Banana Splits fan, but he is.
Yes, I was a huge Banana Splits fan when I was a kid. Really shows how much I enjoyed horror even back then, apparently, because they are made for horror. They really are.
There's something like that mascot type of costume that, out of context of what it's doing, and even maybe sometimes is kind of creepy. Barney's fucking creepy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I wanted more of them, to be honest with you, in this movie. I mean, they were in there quite a bit, but it took a long time to get to them.
I found I didn't get enough of the vocal work of the characters.
Yes.
I always was perked up when the voices actually kicked in.
Yes,
of
exactly,
the classic characters, and they were silent a little too often. But I think they were literally clipping the dialogue from the original shows
to give the consistency of the voices. Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, the story was a little clumsy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I still thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a fantastic nostalgia trip, and I would like to see another one. To be honest with you,
I would too.
I think they're a lot of fun.
It is pretty grisly at times. It's funny how much they actually did enjoy tormenting the adults.
Yes,
their show's been canceled, and they're robots that have kind of
been reprogrammed.
Yeah, they've been reprogrammed. There's a thing after the show, so this is literally the last show these families have gone to, and a small group of them can win a chance to meet the Banana Splits after the show's recorded. And then these bots start picking off the adults one by one while kidnapping the children so they can still perform in front of them.
It's really. I mean, that part was really good. It wasn't really well handled.
Yeah. Although one of them was protecting.
Yes, and I enjoyed that aspect.
Was that Snarky?
I cannot remember.
I can't remember.
Even when I was a kid,
I think it was the elephant.
Yeah, it was definitely the elephant. There's one part I absolutely loved, is there's that scene where they're waiting in line to go into the show, and the kid almost gets hit by the banana car.
Yeah.
And they set up that great joke at the end. And in the end, when the stepfather gets chased by it, and then it's a fake out, you're like, oh, they didn't get him. And then I'm going to spoiler again. Then it does actually happen, but that
guy gets tormented a lot.
Deservedly so. He's a dick.
He is, and you think he's actually going to survive the film. I'm like, oh, I can't believe that guy out of all of these people is going to survive the movie, and then they just get him right near the end.
Yeah.
Does it leave enough of an opening for another one?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. No, I would love to see another one that maybe in a broader setting.
Yeah. I think this one was developed for Sci-Fi. I think that's where I don't know if it's aired there yet or not, but it did go to Blu-ray and streaming. So
sounds so fun.
But it is fun, and it is very entertaining. I would highly recommend it.
Cool.
It's fun for what it is. Keep your expectations low, because it's not great. I feel like there's enough there that they could really build from. It's not a great first outing, but I'm like, there's something here that I think they could go with more and do some more with.
Yeah, I give it like a 6 out of 10. I figured it was adequate, but needed more.
Yeah, this will traumatize your childhood if you were very much a fan of this. The Crofts.
Yeah.
It was the Crofts.
Sid and Marty Krofft.
Sid and Marty Krofft. So if you're a fan of this will completely devastate you.
Nice.
in probably the best ways.
Yeah, and hopefully the best ways. Like I said, that was my favorite part was that, and especially the young kid interacting with them.
Yeah, and it was fun how because I got to see the extra features and stuff on the Blu-ray and see how they recreated the sets from the original show and whatnot.
That's cool.
So, yeah, it was very highly enjoyable.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't give it a rating for Wish Upon. I gave that a 6 out of 10.
Okay,
cool.
Because it was good, but again, not great. It
needed something.
It needed something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Number 3, Summer of '84. This was a big one last year, and I really enjoyed this. Interestingly enough, this is my second nostalgia movie because I was the same age as these kids in 1984. So
Yeah, it was summer 84. Yeah, that was just out 2018, 2017?
2018,
Yeah.
was last year. I mean, it's a bit slow. It takes a long time to sort of get into the horror part of it, but it's another great movie about where the kids are right, where adults aren't listening, but the kids have got it figured out, and it has this wonderful mystery to it. With this last 10 minutes is really the only real horror of the movie.
Oh wow!
And it's just got this wonderful bittersweet horrible ending.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
cool.
I would recommend this movie. It's a 7 out of 10 for me because the
nice.
kids were excellent. This is another one. Unfortunately, by now they're in their late teens, but I've got them on my list for future casting
Nice.
for those late teens characters because all of the young men were excellent, and young girl, if I remember correctly. Yes,
Cool.
That sounds good.
Yes, I'd recommend it. Number 4 was Creep.
Yes.
Now-
I think this was on your list as well, wasn't it?
I've done it before.
Now, this is not because this has come up before. This is the stalker type dude. Like I've seen a movie called Creep years ago.
Yeah, this is not the one
back,
from the 80s.
Back in my
No.
mind, no, mine wasn't in the 80s either, but it was a British film that took
this is
place in a
definite-
subway station.
No, this is the found footage style film, and
I've still not seen this one. Everybody says good things about it, but
Yes.
I have kind of refused to watch it because I thought. Like, I kept getting it confused. I'm like,
With the other one?
I've seen this.
Yeah,
but
and-
it never sounded like the movie I watched.
No, and it is most certainly not the movie you watched. It's an American film. It's written and directed by the two people in it. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
small cast. A fabulous use of found footage because we all know how I feel about found footage
Same
But
way a
in
lot
this
of people.
instance,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
because it's done right for the most part.
Yeah.
There's a few spots where it's like, oh, that feels a little bit forced, but for the most part, the footage is part of the story, right? And that's when it works. Is when the footage is the story rather than a device to keep your budget down.
like getting them, like the whole premise is like he wants this guy to film him
Yes,
before
he's
he dies.
he's doing My Life as a House type of thing where he's recording something for his unborn child that doesn't exist. Spoiler. I'm going to say that a lot today.
Yeah.
This whole thing's spoilers,
Yes.
so we're going to
Yes.
try to keep it as vague as possible, but sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
No. How unsettled did that make you feel?
Yeah, it was pretty unsettling. The actor who plays the creep is so creepy. Mm-hmm. Right? And there's one moment at the end where you're watching and going, why the fuck didn't you turn around? And then he says it. I love the fact that that our villain actually says, why didn't you turn around? I was expecting you to turn around. And I'm like, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for addressing the thing that would bug me if I was a regular viewer. Because they do it. And it's that attention to detail I really enjoyed. Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah. All Hell's Eve, I think you've seen this one, Jay. This is my number 5.
I have, I watched it off season.
Yeah.
Just because I needed more clown in my life.
Yes, and that's why I watched this, is because I've seen Terrifier and love it, and I wanted to see more art. So I watched this one because I saw it on Xavier's list a couple days prior.
Yes.
I'm like, yes, let's do that.
Yeah, it's an anthology film mainly centered around arts. There are 2 more All Hallows Eve films.
Yeah.
But they're not art.
Anthologies. No, they're not art.
But they're not.
See,
Yeah.
I get it confused with another one. It's like your creep thing. I know All Hallows Eve comes up, and I'm like, I think I've seen that, but it's not the right one.
No, it probably there are a couple of them. I think it was a great introduction to Art the Clown.
It is a different actor in art. I think it's actually 2 within the film itself, but neither one of them were the ones that were in Terrifier. But they're
They're adequate.
They're adequate, and they're both really good at it in their own right. But I think they found a really good person for Terrifier.
He does so well because he's just such a great physical actor. Like he
Yeah.
gives you so much with just his body movement and so on. But yeah, I mean, these guys were good. I mean, Art's not in it as much in this either. It's not.
No.
He's not the central focus.
No, he's really the final story.
And the first story as well.
yeah.
Right. He's sort of the connecting tissue more than anything else. I did find that I felt like they were stretching out the segments between your stories a little bit. It felt a little bit draggy at some points, and I know they were setting up sort of the end game, but they could have been a little bit shorter.
Yeah, I mean, these are young filmmakers that were still kind of making their name, and even with Terrifier, they're still young, but you can see they're getting better at their craft, especially by Terrifier.
Yeah,
but the acting's a little dubious. I mean, it was a Terrifier as well, but for overall, the segments weren't bad. Some kind of leave you wanting, though.
I kind of like the fact, especially the second segment, they give you just enough without really giving you a lot of detail. Like they're not, it's not graphic. It just makes you really fucking uncomfortable. That second with the Bride of the Devil thing, that was really that was my favorite segment, actually. Even though as much as I love art, that was my favorite segment in this particular movie.
Yeah.
And this is the first of the anthologies I watched this year. I have things to say about anthologies, especially after the one I watched that'll be on my list for tomorrow, I think. Yeah.
I've got a really good one on my list so far, but I've only got the one anthology. I might add one more yet.
Yeah, no, I have I think 3 anthologies this year, which is high for me.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, this was my favorite of those 3 anthologies for sure.
Right.
Oh, and that was a 6 out of 10 for me as well.
Okay.
Cool.
Number 6 was Devil's Gate. This was a really interesting story that had a great sort of opening bit and is a good story, but there's a twist in it they give away way too fucking early. Like way too early. And it kind of makes the last, like they give it away at the end of the first act.
Oh.
So so it makes the last
That's
2 acts a
frustrating.
little draggy.
Yeah, if you know the conceit of the movie, you kind of know where it's going after half an hour. Then yeah, I can see where that might be a problem.
Yeah, especially considering they set it up so well, and it's got Milo Ventimiglia in it, who's great, and they set him up as a complete nut job, like a killer. But then they ruin that, and they completely change who his character is. And I don't want to give away too much because it is watchable. The acting there's 2 really good actors, actually 3 really good actors, and then 1 really flat performance, which also kind of brings it down a little bit. The acting was great from these recognizable actors in a smaller film. But because of the fact they give away the twist so early and that 1 really flat performance and some mediocre special effects, I only give it a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would still say it's worth watching.
Right.
Just watch the first act and then turn it off.
There you go. So basically, it should have been like maybe a TV episode.
It could have been a really interesting TV episode.
Yeah.
And done away with the twist entirely, and it still would have been good. But the twist could have been interesting if they'd introduced it later in the film as well. Mary Loss of Soul. This is when you said sounds interesting. And it could have been a really freaking good movie.
Uh-oh.
It's had a great story.
A good title.
It is a great title. And that's why actually Val picked this one. So,
okay.
Right. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a cool title. We'll check it out. It watches like a made-for-TV movie.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Right. And I mean, like, it's totally like sort of ABC made. Actually, ABC did pretty well with the made-for-TV horror. It's like PBS made-for-TV horror.
Right.
It looks like it. The acting's like it.
It feels like there's commercial breaks.
It feels like there's commercial breaks. They shy away from some of the more graphic stuff that would have fit really well into this particular story. The acting was all independent actors, and some of it was okay. None of it was really good, and some of it was really bad. But the concept itself was really interesting. Is this about this young girl who goes through this traumatic experience, and through this traumatic experience, part of her soul leaves her.
Ooh, that is a nice idea. Like
Right.
for
And
a movie.
It is, and they explain that part really well in the movie. Is sort of what happens, and it's a sort of known phenomenon, and how to get her soul back, right? And she's slowly dying as part of this loss of her soul. That part is really good. It's just all the pieces around it didn't quite fit because of budget, or just they had the idea and they didn't know how to write around the idea. Because it could have been good, but it was just everything else didn't work, so it only got a 4 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Yeah, right. TV movie.
Okay.
I wonder if that was like the goal. They're like, okay, we're gonna make this, but we're gonna make it for TV, and so they just like dumbed it down or like watered it down.
Yeah, well, I have some later on in my list at the end of the month here where they really leaned into the low budget, and that made it entertaining. This was the other way around, where they took themselves maybe a little bit too seriously, and as a result, it didn't work. And then my last movie for this round, this is one that was recommended to me a few years ago by our friends at Unwritable Rant, by Juliet, and I had trouble finding the right one. She made it very clear that you want to watch this particular one. I finally found it on Tubi, and it's called The Girl Next Door. You already know that, but this movie was by far the best movie I watched in this first 8, and it was disturbing and shocking, and I was uncomfortable and I felt unclean after watching this movie. It is one of those movies that Jay and I talked to movies that were great movies that I wish I had never watched. This is one of those movies. It's the one where I really first sort of identified my unintentional theme for this year, which is kids and in peril and kids being abused. All sort of starts here. I mean, it kind of shows up in Summer of '84. And it kind of even shows up in Banana Splits, but this is where it really sort of came to a head. Where it's just, I mean, this is very loosely based on true events. It's based on a book by Jack Ketchum, where he fictionalizes stories.
I know which this movie. Yeah,
have you seen it?
No,
I've heard about it.
I actually do have it in my collection, though.
Yes, so it's one of those movies where I want to say, watch it.
Yeah,
but
I'd
be
lent my
prepared
copy to somebody, and they were like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, it's It's horror in the pure sense of the word, because you are truly horrified at what was done to this particular young woman. I felt really unclean, and I had to watch something really light afterwards to make myself feel comfortable. And that's a sign of a good horror to me, if I feel uncomfortable after watching it. I was lucky enough to have a few of those this year.
I don't think I have, to be honest.
Well, and usually I don't. I usually am lucky. I consider myself lucky if I got one.
Yeah.
And I had at least 2 or 3 that were like, I
don't know. I mean, maybe that's just because I'm dead inside. But
well, there's some of the ones too. Like, I will actively avoid some of them because I'm like, I just can't. Like, because that one, I looked at it and I'm like, I want to,
and
but
Trish,
I can't.
trust me, this would
it would upset me
you
so
would
much.
upset you, because I was upset. I was upset. I was uncomfortable the whole time I was watching it. Not in a good way all the time.
Because it feels too real. I think that's why I couldn't go for it.
Yes. I mean, this is a real evil. This is something that people. I mean, it's based on a factual story. Yeah. And the scary thing is, the factual story almost sounds more horrible than what they portrayed in the movie. Yeah. Right? And that's really the terrifying thing is the evil that
actually softened it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it got an 8 out of 10, and the only reason I didn't give it a 9 was because I felt way too dirty after watching it.
Oh boy. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen a movie where I need a shower afterwards. I've had a few where I might need a hug, like Martyrs.
Yeah. I know. You've watched porn, Jay. I'm sure that you've had to have a shower after some of those.
Only because they were that good.
He's talking about horror movies. So. Horror
movies. Although there's one that I told Jay about that I watched the opening credits. I went, no, I'm not watching this. But I told him
the name of it, and I thought he was watching porn parody.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I was going through Tubi and I saw the movie there. I'm like, oh, that's the one he was telling me about.
Yeah. But yeah, I could tell by the credits. I'm like, no, there's no way I'm making it through this. But yeah, it might make it onto my list one year, just because it's so much fun to say the title.
Ooh, now I'm intrigued. You'll have to tell me later.
It's a total tongue-in-cheek title, and obviously
there's definitely a few like pushing the border. You could tell they were like titillating horror comedies.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of those on Tubi.
There are a lot of them, yes, and a lot of them are low budget. Interesting thing is that I want to mention this because I'm becoming a fan of this particular studio or distributor. It was distributed by a studio called Gravitas, and there's a couple movies on my list or later on in the month where they also distributed them that were really good. Like, were really good.
They've got a few good ones.
I'm trying to remember, but I think I just watched one recently.
Yeah. No, they're obviously trying to become one of like a horror house.
Yeah,
and they're obviously this. It's called "Don't Fuck in the Woods." Let's just say it right out now. Is not. It was obviously an early sort of pickup by them or something, right? Because it does not match the quality of stuff that I watched later on.
It's funny, like I haven't hit any this year as of yet, but another studio that I'm kind of, or release company is Raven's Banner. That sometimes I come across some really great ones. Other times I come across some really shitty ones from the same releasing company. But oftentimes there's like, wow, there's some pretty cool stuff hiding in there.
Yeah, and I think that, when they're first sort of starting out, they're pretty indiscriminate as to what they're grabbing. They're saying, well, let's just grab as much as we can, and we'll really sort of focus on the gems, but we'll release everything.
But it's honestly kind of funny when you're doing it. It's like playing kind of like a little one of those like lotto machines.
Yeah.
Be like going, ooh, is it going to be a good one? I'm like, cherry time.
But yeah,
Okay.
that's my first 8.
Okay, that's a good 8. Before I get into mine, because it's also on my list, let's give you the trailer for the Banana Splits movie. Tra-la-la, la-la-la, tra-la-la, la-la-la.
Sweetheart, we
Are going to the Banana Splits.
Sometimes at night, I see the splits riding around in the little cars, laughing and singing.
Who's excited to see the banana splits?
Rebecca, I'm canceling the show.
What?
Hey, kids, put on your happiest faces because the Banana Split Show is about to begin.
Where are the children?
Mom, get out of here.
Time's almost up.
Why are you doing this to me?
Please!
Let me out! Now the show can go on forever and ever and ever.
Come on, you fussy son of a... I just really want your brother's birthday to be perfect.
We're gonna have so much fun.
And we are going to have so much fun. Okay, it's my turn to round out week 1 of 31 Days of Horror. Starting with Satanic Panic. I'll go through the list like you guys did, and then I'll get into it. Second one was Brightburn. Number 3, Tokyo Gore Police. Number 4 was In Tall Grass. Number 5 was Annabelle Comes Home.
Okay.
Number 6 was The Canal. Number 7 was Nightmare Cinema. And number 8 was Overlord.
You had a couple on there that I was actually looking at, like the Tokyo Gore Police, and it's actually one that I've been wanting to watch for a while.
Yeah, it's been on my brain for several years because I had seen another rather gory one called Machine Girl, I think, from the same company, and I remember being just batshit insane, and that's why I'm like, this is the year. This is where I'm going to do Tokyo Gore Police.
Yeah, we were definitely on the same wavelength a lot this year.
Yeah, there was one day just last week where we were literally watching the same movie on the same day at the same time.
Yes, like simultaneously.
We didn't even do it.
That's funny.
Yeah, there was one. I'm like, damn it, he did a '60s movie I really wanted to do, and I'm like, well, all right. There's other things in the '60s I can do. So,
Well, there's one you just mentioned that I just watched this morning.
oh, well, there you go. So there's some weird vibe going on there. So Satanic Panic, it is from Fangoria Films, directed by Chelsea Stardust. And this one was kind of fun. It had a lot of smart, snappy dialogue. It's about a pizza girl who gets caught up delivering a pizza to a mansion full of Satanists who are in desperate need of a virgin for their sacrifice. to raise Satan because Jerry O'Connell keeps deflowering them.
Damn it, Jerry.
He dies fairly early in the film because
that's becoming a thing for him now.
He was trying to deflower the pizza girl too when they finally caught her.
Damn it, Jerry.
It is a very fun horror comedy. At times the acting's a bit dodgy, but I thought Haley Griffith as the pizza girl was really great. Rebecca Romaine is what she is. She's okay. And that's the best she's ever been. Is okay. There's a reason why they didn't give her dialogue in X-Men. She's not
got
really
some dialogue in X-Men.
She's not really good at delivering
X2?
dialogue, and she still isn't. But she's not bad. She's like the head Satanist in this one, and Jordan Ladd's in it, and Ruby Modine, who was in Happy Death Day.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Cool.
Yeah, she was really good, actually. I was really impressed with Ruby Modine. But this was a pretty fun movie. Fangoria is about releasing one a year right now since they're resurfaced. And so far, I think they're 2 for 2.
Cool.
Because we did Puppet Master, The Last Strike, or The Littlest Strike last year. And that was That was a lot of fun, and this one still had some gore. It felt like this one was a little lower budget on that side, but it was still a really fun movie, and one I do recommend.
Nice.
But because it did have some stuff that, like I said, some dodgy acting and whatnot, I can only give it about a 6.5 out of 10 because I wanted to like it more than I did. But
Yeah.
I mean, there was the kill drill strap on, so
Oh, wow.
we got that.
Cool.
I have a movie with a strap on in the last half of the month here too.
But as far as Virgin,
Well, now I feel left out. I'm the only one without a movie with a strap on in it.
there's still time, Trish.
I know. Of all the people, though. Of all of us.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When it came up in the movie I was watching, I was a little shocked. Not disturbed, but shocked. I'm like, oh, wait, I wasn't seeing that. Didn't see that coming.
My number 2 is Brightburn from 2019 as well, directed by David Yarovesky, written by Brian and Mark Gunn of Those Guns.
Yeah.
And this is basically the Superman origin gone wrong. The kid coming into his power and the power corrupting fairly quickly as he discovers his ship in the bar and it messes with his head. He thinks it wants him to burn the world, essentially. And it quickly becomes a survival story because he is adopted and dad's the first one on to him. This one felt like it was built for me, being the guy who works in the comic book store and loves that stuff. It didn't land. I wish I wanted to like it more. I wanted to like it more than I did, but I didn't think it landed. The characters make really stupid decisions in this movie, and that really just derails the whole thing for me. It's like, really, like, you just saw this kid stick his hand in a lawnmower or whatever. He's invulnerable, so why are you shooting at him? Why wouldn't you make casings out of that? I kept going, like, you saw him bleed when he was he had fell onto his ship, and that's the only time you've ever seen him bleed.
Yeah.
And then when they figured out, it's way too late.
But how many thousand movies have we seen where people continue to do that? Like Terminator, we'll just continue shooting at him even though nothing will fucking happen.
Yeah.
Chopping Mall last week.
Yeah, stupid decisions are just the bread and butter for any horror movie.
Yeah. So, despite having Elizabeth Banks in there, I mean, I wanted it to like it, but it didn't land. 5 out of 10.
Yeah, it looked better than it actually was.
Yeah.
Well, the
and not the only
concept
one
seems kind of cool. I would like that concept to be explored.
Yeah, and I've read comics with a similar vein. One specifically by Rick Veitch that I thought was really good. But
well, it's Rick Veitch. Of course, it was really good.
Yeah, but this wasn't it, unfortunately. Okay, number 3 from Japan, Tokyo Gore Police by Yoshihiro Nishimura.
Sounds amazing.
It is. The Tokyo Gore Police are hunting these humans that are infected with something. They call them engineers. So when a body part is cut off, it regrows as a weapon.
Cool.
Turns out they're not the bad guys in this movie, as our hero Ruka is also infected and winds up sacrificing limbs to create some weapons. And some of they're great. I mean, this movie's like horrific, obscene, hilarious, and nobody should watch it. 7.5 out of 10.
I want to be infected with that thing.
It is quite good. There's one point a penis is bitten off and it turns into a cock cannon.
Yeah, but you don't have a penis.
Yeah, there was one girl who had no limbs at all and was kind of this gimp character, but eventually had swords through her arms and legs, and you could see her walking around on it. Like, there's some really neat stuff in here. I recommend this to nobody, but it's really good. It's really fun, really silly. Like I said, it's the over-the-top kind of almost cartoon anime aspects that kind of keep you from throwing up.
Well, that's the things. I've heard of some people, like the one woman who directed that Punisher movie. She's like, if it's cartoonish, it's not as bad, because it's sort of like you realize it's so silly that it's not as you're not as grossed out or grotesque.
No, so I was greatly amused by it, and it was a lot of fun. And like I said, it was very similar to another one I'd seen called Machine Girl that was also really over the top and really gross.
I wonder if
there's so much blood.
I wonder if the Sofia Boutella character in Kingsman was sort of based on that sword girl.
I was just thinking the same thing myself. Yeah.
Yeah, this feels like a Japanese Peter Jackson movie in his glory days and
Sweet.
when he was making some of his
It's a
gorier
bad
stuff.
taste.
Yeah. Number 4, as we talked about, was In the Tall Grass. I don't think we need to really cover this again, so I will just skip by it. But I enjoyed it enough, like 6.5 out of 10. Not bad Canadian movie, so I was down with it. I wanted to like it more than I did, because especially after last year when we had when Gerald's Game landed on Netflix, and that turned out to be really great. So I was kind of hoping it was going to be that good, and it was okay. Like it was definitely watchable, but not Gerald's Game caliber.
Well, some of the concepts are so good on the page, but don't translate as well.
Well, apparently it didn't translate all that well on the page either, because Netflix declined it originally. And then with the Stephen King-a-thons,
you're right.
they went, we'll do it, right?
Everybody's going to take as much Stephen King as they can now.
Yeah, so I think Netflix originally recognized that it probably wasn't as well thought out as some of his other stuff.
Yeah, and it's a shame because, Joe Hill's stuff just starting to get adapted now, and I didn't think it was the best outing, but Nosferatu's doing well on AMC Shudder right now, and we've got Lock and Key launching next year on Netflix, so I'm very excited for Lock and Key because it's a fantastic graphic novel
and
series.
Horns was excellent.
And Horns was excellent. I forgot about that, but I really, really liked Horns. Number 5 was Annabelle Comes Home. And, of course, I watched this, and then I realized somewhere along the way I hadn't seen the second one, but that's fine. This one, because the second one was technically the prequel movie.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this movie for what it was. It does bring back Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga from the Conjuring films as the characters. They kind of set up the beginning of the movie as they're bringing Annabelle home, putting her in the case for the first time, and then they do turn up at the end. But this is mainly about their daughter and some friends that come over to babysit. And it is another case of a character does something really fucking dumb, but I was okay with the dumb as far as the conceit for a film. It was really fucking stupid when they tell you don't touch, and they're doing all this creepy stuff. They don't fucking touch anything.
You're a teenager. You're not gonna listen.
I mean, this teenager has trauma in her life and is trying to reconnect with her lost parents, or his lost mother anyway, her lost mother, and literally touches everything, breaks into the museum and touches everything, including the case that Annabelle's in, and doesn't shut it quite right, and so enough for her to get out, and that demon's still hungry for souls, let alone everything else. It was nice to see some of these other artifacts and what they could do that we have kind of seen in that trophy room from other films. They did touch upon another one of the cases, which was the werewolf case.
Okay.
I don't think they've ever made a movie based on this particular investigation that they did. So it was kind of nice to see how they touched upon this kind of spirit of a werewolf type of thing. So that was roaming the outside. In a way, this is kind of, it's very obvious this is a backdoor pilot for more spin-offs.
Yeah.
Much like Conjuring 2 had The Crooked Man, which we know is in development, and The Nun came out of that as well. So you kind of roll your eyes a little bit because you know what they're doing. But goddamn, I kind of enjoyed it just for the chaos of it all.
Nice.
And for the most part, that young girl was making smart decisions despite the babysitter's not. But she's the daughter.
She knows.
She knows that, like, what's going on, and when something's attacking her, she goes straight for a cross and prays it away.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that a lot for what it was. Like, it was probably one of the more enjoyable Conjuring movies, I think, just as a guilty pleasure type of movie.
Cool.
Yeah, you don't have to take it too seriously. You're not super invested in any particular story. It's just it kind of watches like a slasher movie, but nobody dies.
Awesome. Well, and then you mentioned like Patrick Wilson comes back again, but he's a good guy in this one.
Yeah. Well, they're barely in it. They're kind of
the Conjuring universe. He's a good guy.
Yeah, just I think to connect it back to the Conjuring, because Annabelle's I almost fall into its own franchise and
No.
I think people forget where it came from. So I think that's why they did it as well, to kind of bridge it into the stuff like Curse of La Llorona. I haven't seen it yet, but apparently it's another character that shows
okay.
up briefly. And that's the thing. That's a disappointing part. They always start out okay, and I never want to watch another one.
Yeah.
And then the follow-ups are usually way better. So I gave that like 8.5 out of 10 because I really enjoyed it. But I do recognize his failings. It probably doesn't deserve that high, but because I had sheer enjoyment out of it, it's what I wanted out of it.
Absolutely.
Then I was fine with it. Number 6 was The Canal, written and directed by Ivan Kavanagh. This was out of Ireland in the UK, starring Rupert Evans. And this is about a film archivist whose sanity begins to crumble after being given a 16mm film reel, and he starts seeing a horrific murder on there that is in the house he's living in. He's moved into. Meanwhile, his wife has also disappeared. And this is part of his crumbling psyche. Is this a ghost story, or is this the insanity of this man who may or may not have done it? Because he's being investigated for the murder.
Telltale heart.
And in the film, it's like there's a detective who's like, they always look at the husband for doing it, and you want to know why? Because the husband always does it.
Yes.
So it's kind
There's a
of
reason.
it's murder mystery wrapped in a ghost story, and one might be true and one might not be, or they both might be. It's a weird little movie. At times, I don't think it quite always works. It's a very slow, methodical movie. And the canal is where his wife disappears, and it already had a ghost story wrapped around it, and the place he lives in, it's almost overly convoluted at times.
Wow.
But neat movie, weird movie, and I did kind of go out of my way to find some weird ones this year. 6.5 out of 10.
Nice.
Not as good as I wanted it to be, but neat nonetheless. Number 7 was Nightmare Cinema from 2018, and this is my anthology movie. This has Alejandro Bruges directing, who did Juan of the Dead, Joe Dante, who of course everybody should know Joe Dante, Howling Gremlins. Mick Garris was a part of this, Hocus Pocus, Shining, the TV miniseries. He's done a lot of Stephen King, The Stand. Japanese director Rihei Kitamura, who did Midnight Meat Train.
Okay.
Also did a segment on here. And David Slade, who did Hard Candy and 30 Days of Night, also did a piece. Man, this is one of my favorite horror anthologies that I've come across.
And that's what I watched this morning.
Okay, there you go. I really enjoyed this thing, especially that black and white piece was great.
So good.
Mickey Rourke is the projectionist. He's kind of the crypt keeper of it all. As these people wander into this movie theater, they're kind of drawn into it as this ticket comes out. And it tells their story, their horror story, either past, present, or future of their lives. And it usually doesn't end well, and the projectionist kind of leaves with their soul. Only one person gets out.
Yep.
Because they've survived their story.
Yep.
Essentially, it's your story's not fully written yet. First segment's very much a slasher thing, but it's kind of turned on its head as it turns into an alien infection movie.
Yes.
The second segment is about plastic surgery gone wrong.
Very wrong.
Very, very wrong. The third segment is a demon torturing children in a Catholic church, leading them to suicide. It's a pretty dark one, but one of the better written ones. That first slasher one's probably the weakest one out of the segments. Yeah. The fourth segment in there was this one's a hard one to describe, a woman who descends into a lower realm while having a psychotic break.
Yeah. Like you're not sure, at the beginning you're not sure if it is a psychotic break or if something is actually
that
happening.
One was on a whole other level. That was the most artfully done out of all the segments.
And it was, but
it's also the weirdest one.
It's the weirdest one, and I just kept looking around like going, oh, like that would drive me nuts because like the whole world is just disgusting.
Yeah.
Like just,
that was the
so
one.
Gross.
That's the segment that impressed me the most. I mean, all of them are pretty decent though. The fifth segment is a kid's dead parents basically want him to join them.
Well, no, just his mother.
Yeah.
Just his mother's a little batshit and wants to do it.
Yeah.
But then he meets a friend who knows about all of this. And I liked her showing up. That kind of gave me a little bit more hope.
This whole thing harkened back to like the really classic ones. This is a bit of an heir apparent to Mick Garris's Masters of Horror series, but done in a smaller way. But also goes back to things like the Tales of the Dark Side movie and these really classic and well-written anthology films. And I really, that's what I really enjoyed about it. It felt at home with the best of the bunch.
Really good. And it made all of its notes succinctly, and it was really good. But I had one question that I want your perspective on for that second segment on plastic surgery. Didn't you expect the mother to look a little more unusual than she did if she's going to react like that? Because she looks a little too normal for the outcome to make any sense.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't think she looked very normal to me.
No, but like you look at what has been done to the young lady, and you look at her. She should look a little bit wilder.
Maybe. I think so. But
that was the only downfall I found of this.
Maybe the final note wasn't as strong as it could have been.
Yes.
Number 8 there to round out the week was Overlord by director Julius Avery, by screenwriter Bill Ray and Mark L. Smith, starring Jovan Adepo, Wyatt Russell, Mathilda Olivier, Pilo Asbach, and John Magaro. This is basically a bunch of U.S. soldiers are behind enemy lines and during D-Day and find outside this village that some of these experiments are going on, creating monstrous creatures and whatnot for the Nazis. And really well made. It looks great. The movie's not so great. The war stuff doesn't come off as well as I was hoping it would be. It does feel almost too polished for what it is. I saw a much better version of this a couple years ago called Frankenstein's Army, and I thought that was a better movie, to be honest, despite the fact it had a lower budget.
It looks very stylized from the trailer.
It is stylized, yeah. Like I said, it's very polished and very well made. And the effects are pretty decent. Sometimes the CG is well done, but you can tell like it might have looked better practically. But there's look-wise, I give it all the kudos. I mean, it looks great. It's just not, unfortunately.
Yeah, and this one's on a lot of best of lists.
I don't get it. I give it. I mean, it's a U.S.-Canada joint. I was like, ooh, okay. And I've been looking forward to seeing it. And best I can do is a 6 out of 10 for this one. Nightmare Cinema was. I didn't give my rating on that, but I gave that one an 8 out of 10. So it dropped a little bit because not every segment was equal. But
they rarely are.
Yeah, but Overlord unfortunately did not deliver for me. So that rounds out my week. Trish, what was your favorite for the week? What was your weakest for the week?
My favorite, Hantu Kaklima, because it was just such a surprise. And I loved it. And my weakest, In the Tall Grass.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It didn't do for me what I wanted it to do.
Right. Sam, what about you?
Well, you can tell by my ratings that Mary Lost a Soul was my weakest by a mile. A mile. And certainly the best one is definitely The Girl Next Door. There's as uncomfortable as it made me, and the fact I never want to see it again, and I would not suggest anybody watch this movie because it's so disconcerting. It's still just everything about it was great filmmaking.
Right. Well, for me, and that's why I ask, because despite even me giving ratings, it doesn't always mean what my favorite's going to be, right? For my favorite of the week, definitely Nightmare Cinema, despite Annabelle getting a higher rating from me. I would, because I really enjoyed it. But Nightmare Cinema was everything I wanted it to be, and I think it was fabulous. Please give us more of this. Loved it. Least favorite, that was Brightburn. It was that one really let me down, but Overlord was close on its heels.
Yeah, there's so many things. It's sort of somewhat disheartening when you're watching a movie and you're like going, you had such a great idea. I think that makes me harsher towards it when I'm like, how dare you waste this opportunity?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How did you get back here? Well.
What do you think of the location of the will in the brain now, Dr. Hill? I'm sorry, what was that? Actually, you've been quite useful to me. You helped me prove that consciousness resides in every part of the body. You had such pretensions of grandeur, you pompous plagiarist. But look at you now. You're nothing but a dead head. A no body.
Okay, now it's time for our second week, week 2 of 31 Days of Horror. What are your next dates, Sam?
Okay.
9 through 16.
9 through 16. Okay, so my first one was actually a double feature. Because the first movie is actually a little bit less than an hour. I'm like, well, that doesn't count. So I watched the second half, which was a little over an hour. They were musicals. They were Devil's Carnival and Alleluia, the Devil's Carnival.
You son of a bitch. They're on my list, but you won't get me until next week.
Yes, and this one was completely unintentional. I saw it, and I'm like, oh, this is by the guy who did Repo.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I gotta watch this.
This is Darren Lynn Bousman.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. I like the first movie better. I found that the story
I did too.
Yeah, the first story was really good.
The second one got a little more drawn out, and there honestly wasn't enough music
I
in
agree.
the musical.
Right? Right? And I mean, and I also found in the second one that they introduced all these characters and they didn't really do anything with them, right?
Well, they focused so much on the painted lady.
Yes.
That everybody else didn't get developed, and now we've had 2 movies of no development on these characters that have great actors behind them.
So many great actors in this.
I mean, for a fairly new actress in Emily Autumn, who's
she's
a
so
performer.
Good.
She's beautiful. She can sing her ass off.
Well, yeah, she's a performer. She's a singer, right?
And she's a really great actor. It turns out a natural. So because she puts so much into her performances on stage that it kind of comes through even in this.
Absolutely.
And Darren Lynn Bousman even directed one of her music videos. So I can see why they'd put the focus behind her, but I was halfway through the second film there before I realized that it was a story from the past. But like, oh, this makes sense because he was always doing these Aesop fables about these characters. So.
Yeah. Once you sort of figure out what the story is, the second one is good. But I was expecting more of sort of that war between heaven and hell, and there was less of it. It was more of Emily Autumn's story.
Yeah,
her fall from heaven.
It is the lead up, the kind of scam that the devil is pulling to start this war. So the beginning of the first movie is basically the story of 3 people's descent into hell, and as the story is being told how they got there, and the devil
and their penance,
and the devil sends one back up to heaven. Just like, well, maybe I don't want you, and this sending these people who are supposed to repent in hell up to heaven. This is basically starting a war because that's not where they belong.
Yeah, because the last story with Sean Patrick Flannery, who I love. The reason he got sent back was because he let go of the thing that had sent him to hell. Right? Like, it's like, well, no, I really don't want that. Why am I carrying it around? And
I get the feeling he killed his son, by the way. They allude to it.
They allude to the fact that he's responsible for his son's death, yes. Actually, they outright say it.
Yeah.
That he's responsible for his son's death. Unintentional, I think it was like neglect, like he wasn't paying attention and his son died. But he's easily the most tormented through the whole movie. He's broken. He's a broken man. He was about to kill himself.
I did like the kleptomaniac, though.
Oh, she was wonderful.
Yeah.
She was, I mean, the 3 lost souls, they were all great.
They had great stories.
And they had so many good actors. Like, we have Bill Moseley, who they hardly ever use.
Yeah, it was weird because he's in there, and you got Alexa Panavega, who actually does get a good time, but then completely disappears.
Yes, we have Ogre from Skinny Puppy.
Yeah, he gets a little more play in the second one.
Yeah, he does. But yeah, he's wonderful in it as the twins.
Yeah, he's the shapeshifter.
Yeah, and he's wonderful. Yeah, he's I didn't realize how much he had acted, and he's quite good.
Yeah, he was quite good.
Yeah, there's no uneven performances in either of these movies. Like, everybody is really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of returning people from Repo.
Yeah.
Except Paris Hilton.
which is fine.
Where
Which is fine.
nobody misses that.
Yeah. I mean, for what it is, I mean, it is still fairly low budget, even though it looks great for the budget they had.
Yeah, they created it basically like this. You could tell they did it in a studio, completely black, and then they made these nice sets to kind of insert between. So even though the sets are kind of intricate, they're not because there's a lot of blackness around it.
Yes, yeah, they did a great job of making it look good, and the makeup is excellent.
So, the devil's kind of got this carny thing going on as how he uses this to torment the souls that come to him. And then Heavens has a more corporate atmosphere.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
My.
Yeah. So, I mean, we got right into that one really fast because it was a fun watch. Even though I only really give it a 6 out of 10 because it's not... Because they were short and because of the second one was so much weaker than the first one.
Yeah. That one needed some tightening up.
Yeah. So I'll go through the other 7 before we get into them too much further, or we kind of derailed our train
questions.
there.
Yeah, that's fine.
So number 10 was The Basement. Number 11 was another anthology called Strange Events. Number 12 was Observance from Australia. I liked that one. Number 13 was Assassination Nation.
I've been meaning to watch that. For some reason, I didn't think it fell in the horror category, but we'll get into that.
We'll definitely get into it. Number 14 was Most Beautiful Island. I can't wait to talk about this one. Number 15, Anna and the Apocalypse from the UK. And then number 16 was Await Further Instructions. You had questions?
Oh, yeah, for the other one. Okay, so you have those 2 movies. I guess they're trying to start a war because he's pushing people back up to heaven, or how does that work?
He's got this clever plan to send people up, and he's consistently sending people up who are supposed to be in purgatory. This allows him to send up the twin as a spy.
Okay.
As a lost soul, rather than the demon that he actually is. So he's basically embedded somebody by sending in these souls that shouldn't be there to begin with, and it's causing a bit of chaos up top. And they are expecting retribution, and they do send down a representative from heaven for negotiations when it doesn't go so well for that dude either. But that turns out to be this love triangle thing with the painted lady who had ascended into heaven, but through her own hubris and curiosity wound up being punished and sent into hell.
Okay, so basically you're not staying anywhere.
So she's basically been betrayed by her love up in heaven.
Oh.
Or that's the way she perceives it, even though she's betrayed by her own self. Right?
When I'm hearing about this, it seems like a larger thematical thing about like immigration.
There's so much happening in these movies. Like they're really well thought out. It's just the second one could have used a little bit more time and money, I think.
Clearly this is kind of a series. Like the first one, they're about 4 years apart.
Okay.
As far as when
because they're all self-funded.
And we're already about 3 years past the second one. And Darren's got quite a bit on his plate with no sign of a third one, but clearly there's a third one coming because we don't even get the war yet.
No, so yeah, there's more planned for sure. Like when you read on the Wikipedia, it was planned as a series of movies that told a story, right? The nice thing about the first one, I think, is because it is an entire story, even though it sets up the second movie. If the second movie didn't happen, you wouldn't have been disappointed because the first one is so well written and tight and complete.
Okay, cool.
Right? And I think that's why I liked it better too.
Yeah, I think so too. Like it flowed better. You had consistent and tight stories, and it still was only roughly an hour long. And the second one has got a more feature length, but it feels like it meanders. They probably have the same amount of music or less than the 1 hour one.
Even though it's like 30 minutes longer or 25 minutes longer.
Which is a shame. Yeah. That's what kind of disappointed me about the second one is it didn't quite meet the first movie standards.
No.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so your next one is?
The next one was The Basement. I really liked this.
This is on my very long list of things to watch.
Yeah, and I would recommend watching this. It is a small cast, like 4 people, kind of small cast. It all takes place, almost entirely takes place in the basement of the house of this serial killer.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And Jackson Davis plays the serial killer, and he plays out this story to torment the person he's about to kill. The person he's captured for this particular scenario is really good as well. I mean, both performances are so solid. But he plays out these different characters. He plays a priest. He plays the guy's mother. He plays a guard. He plays all these different characters to torment him and tells him when he's going to die. He says, your execution is at this hour. Right, and it's the story of this guy trying to escape and trying to talk him out of killing him and all this stuff. But there's also this side story with the victim's wife who is wondering where her husband is. Right, and she's talking to her friend about where her husband is and all this stuff. And there's a side story, and I don't want to spoil it because there's other stuff happening here in the movie that tells more of the story of all of these people, like all of them. But it's a really disconcerting watch in a good way. Like it's because the performance by Jackson Davis is so solid as this guy, because every character is a different character, right? Like, and the performances of the sort of multiple type of personality are just. I can't say enough about this particular performance.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. Even though I only gave it a 7 out of 10, it's one of those movies that I would probably watch again.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. That's excellent.
Yeah, even though I know more about it after having watched it.
Well, I mean, the thing about horror is, it's something I always hate when I hear people say, well, it's not as good as I remember. Well, like, you're only going to be able to have a first experience once.
Yes.
And you're not going to see the movie the same way a second time. So it doesn't make it any worse or hasn't aged any differently. It's because you've already had that first experience.
That's right. And
you're never going to have it again.
And these really well-written ones that have more than just what you're seeing on the screen happening, it's even harder to forgive that unless you're aware of it, right? And you have to be aware of that.
Yeah, it sounds like that movie still has a lot to give on a rewatch. So.
Yeah, it's because I think there's a lot of nuance there in all the performances. It does have Misha Barton in it, and she's actually really quite good.
Okay.
I think she's underrated as an actress because of all of her sort of drama in the public eye, but yeah, she's quite good, and I think I'd like to see more of her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
What's next?
Strange Events. I don't even want to talk about this one.
I saw this sitting on Tubi, and then I was shocked when I saw it on your list because it looked bad right out of the gate.
There is one segment that stuck out in my mind. I'm not even going to talk about the rest.
So this is the anthology, okay?
This is an anthology, yes.
Okay.
There's a wonderful segment about a woman who stalks herself and murders herself.
Okay, because the cover
cool.
the cover logo really looked like it was just trying to confuse people from Stranger
And
Things.
there is there are a lot of comments about that on the wiki and all that stuff.
Okay.
And comments in IMDb about how it kind of tries to tap into that Stranger Things audience, and
it's a clickbait title.
it really is. It really is, because there's a lot of Black Mirror type stuff in it, like technology affecting people's lives and stuff like that. But there's a lot of segments in it. It's only 77 minutes long, and there's like 9 segments.
Good Lord.
That's too much.
So it's none of the segments really get the time they deserve.
Yeah.
I mean, it had some money because the segments are really slick. The production's great. The performances for the most of them are actually really solid. It's just the stories themselves just didn't get enough time. Right. The only one that worked in this short amount of time was this one about this woman who stalks herself. Right.
Stop stalking yourself.
Yeah.
Stop stalking yourself.
Yeah. If you just watch that one part,
right,
you're good.
I would just imagine somebody stalking me is like they're just bored.
But yeah, and
that's their punishment.
And this is my biggest complaint about anthologies is when they're really well done, they're really well done.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I like a full story, and anthologies are so hard for them to fit a full story into those shorts, the amount of time they have. I did watch one last year that I quite enjoyed that had a number of really great directors. This year, All Hallows Eve, but it was all the same director, and it was all connected. There's connective tissue there. This one didn't have that. Right? There's one that's going to show up in my second half here that I liked better than this one. I'll just say that.
I always find I like horror anthologies better if there is a connective narrative.
Like Trick or Treat, which I also really enjoyed.
Trick or Treat, etc. Nightmare Cinema had a bridge to it. Most of these really good ones.
Tales of Halloween.
Yeah, even Creepshow.
Yeah,
you know, there's
tissue,
even though it's just like the segments in the comic book, there's a connective tissue that makes it flow together.
Yeah.
And those always work best. And Tales of Halloween is another example because I really like that movie as well.
So but this is my sort of a great example of why I tend to avoid anthologies. Right? And I don't know why I clicked on this one, to be honest with you.
You know, like I've seen ABC's of Death, and I thought some segments are good, some weren't, but overall didn't like it as much as an anthology because some of them didn't even feel like horror segments at all, and just like it's letter A, letter B, letter C. That's too weak to be connective.
And
there were too many, too short.
And I like a theme, like I did that one on phobias, and it's fine when an anthology story has to do with the actual fucking phobia, and they don't just extrapolate what they think it might be.
Yeah.
That pisses me off.
But this one is another 4 out of 10 for me.
Okay. Ooh, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, like I said, but that one segment wasn't enough to. After 9 segments and only one that I can actually remember.
That's bad. That's a fail.
Yeah.
All right, what's your next one?
My next one was Observance from Australia. This was so interesting. It's the story of a private eye who's hired to watch a woman for. They don't explain why he was hired to watch, and that's part of the story. Is he doesn't really know why he's watching her. He's just told to watch her. So he moves into this abandoned building across the street from her apartment. But there's something happening in the building itself, and like I'm not really sure I understood the movie, to be honest with you. Right? That's one of those movies. It was one of the movies where I want to watch it again, so to see if I can pick up on what I missed. But yeah, he starts having bad dreams, and he has this carton of who has actually a bottle of milk in the fridge, a glass bottle of milk, and the more time he spends in there, the blacker this milk turns, because it's really and it doesn't you don't really know why, except there's something evil in the place, and there's parts of it where I was actually going, I'm like disconcerted in that good way that horror should disconcert you. It's like you're like anticipating a jump scare that never happens. And I love those where you're expecting a jump scare and you're just like, where is it, and then nothing, and it's like, oh, so you're tense
the whole
waiting
time.
and waiting for it, because you're still expecting it even when it doesn't happen when you thought it was going to. Right? You never there's this whole sort of story of sacrifice, and this girl is supposed to be some sort of sacrifice to something, but they never explain what the something is. Like I said, it's another rewatch for me because I know there's more in it that I didn't see.
Okay, that's always good when you got questions and it challenges you. I always like to be challenged by a movie. Yeah, and
this one totally a 7 out of 10 for me. Like it's maybe even a 7.5 because I just again, another small cast film. It's really mostly one guy with a couple other characters. Sort of, even the girl doesn't get much screen time. It's more about him and his experience in this abandoned building.
Makes you wonder if he's hired to watch her, but like, why is he there? Like,
but is he actually the sacrifice? Like, you kind of get that feeling.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, there's a lot of feeling in this movie. Like, you're really engaged in what's happening to this guy.
And that's what's cool about horror, is you can do so much with so little.
I mean, and it's not a lot of effects, not a lot of gore. It's just a few moments where it's like, whoa, that was really disconcerting or disturbing. Right? And that's what I like for my horror.
Awesome.
This is when I'm happiest, is when I'm getting into this weird stuff that makes me feel something rather than just sort of shocks me.
Nice.
Yeah, I did find the ending a little confusing, but I think that requires a rewatch.
Okay.
Right? I had a couple.
Still not bad though.
Yeah, I had a couple of those this year where I'm like, I have to watch this again just to make sure I got it.
Oh, all right.
That's awesome.
And I do. I like those ones. There's one that I recommend to people every time somebody says recommend a horror, and we talked about it. There was one, my favorite one from last year, which was The Strange Color of Your Body's Tears, where I still want to rewatch it again because it was so good, but I still not sure what I saw.
Yeah, Modern Giallo, that one.
Yeah, exactly. Very much so. Number 12, Assassination Nation. This one, oh yeah, it's horror. There's no question.
Because that one, it disguises itself as something else. Because it's Assassination Nation, and it's got all of these pretty teens on the poster, and with a title like that, you kind of think action thriller or at least comedy action.
There's a little bit of comedy in it, but it's really interesting because it kind of starts off almost like a teen comedy, because you have these four young women who are sort of this cliquey group of girls. One of whom is transgender, which I thought was wonderful. She was so amazing, and I just loved her performance. She was just so good. But yeah, it's a more a comment on privacy and social media, like the terror that could happen if a lot of these things that you've done were shared on social media, and the repercussions of your actions. And then there's this whole thing where our lead character gets blamed for all of this stuff that's happening to this town, because all these secrets are being let out. And then it moves into your more horror thing, almost torture porn kind of stuff. Almost. It just walks that edge so well. Performances, all these young women are excellent. And I love the fact that none of them are like your supermodel you expect to see in a horror movie girls. They're still a bit beautiful, but they're normal beautiful, right? They're not that unachievable beauty that you see in some of these actresses, right? And of course they're really sensitive to the transgender thing and the homosexuality thing. They actually address some of that, and there's a coming out at some point in the movie.
Cool.
Like, there's just so much that's wonderful in here. And I don't think it's one of those movies where I think people hate it because it's too close to the truth in some ways. And there's people like me who love it because it is so close to the truth.
Yeah, like it sounds like sort of Mean Girls, if Mean Girls had happened sort of now as opposed to way back
There's
then.
a certain element to that. Yeah, absolutely.
That sounds really cool. Because, and when you say assassination, I've seen the thing for it, but I guess that's part of it. I didn't know what it was.
Yes.
I don't think it's marketed properly.
Yeah. No, I don't think it ever was. I've seen it come up on lists before. I'm like, what? That doesn't look like a horror movie at all.
And it is so cool to watch because it's so stylistic.
Yeah.
Right. There's like the director just had a lot of fun giving it a real look that he carries right through the film.
Right.
Cool.
Right. Like it's and there's there you see the poster with them wearing their red jackets, and that's all explained. Like the red jackets just aren't there because it's fashion. It's there's a whole purpose behind it. It's really a lot of fun.
Cool.
And you have what's his name? The guy from Community. I've forgotten his name all of a sudden. He plays a really interesting character in it. Now the one I wanted to talk about most Beautiful Island.
Okay.
I was going to watch this one. I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't even heard of this one.
It's a first-time film by and I should have written down her name, by the lead actress. She wrote, directed, and starred in this film. And it's this beautiful tale of this woman who's an undocumented immigrant into New York. And, the first part of the movie is sort of what it's like to be undocumented in the United States, right? Struggling to find jobs that pay you under the table and keep yourself alive, living in these shitty apartments. The first opening, there's a scene near the beginning where she's in a tub and cockroaches start coming out of the wall, right? And which has its own horror element right then and there. But it's really a story about the lengths people go to get by. And she gets set up to go to be a hostess at this event, and you're kind of thinking, she's going to be a hooker, right, or a prostitute. But it turns out to be something completely different, and it's very uncomfortable. And you really fall in love with this character who is just really trying to get by. And it has a bit of a twisty ending, and it's definitely worth watching. This is another 7.5 to 8 out of 10 for me. It was just so, and again, it looks great. And considering it's a directorial debut, I should probably give it a 9 just because it was so good based on her inexperience. Right? If this is what she can do on her first trot out, I want to see more from her because it's so good. Number 15, Anna and the Apocalypse. Just goofy fun. It
looks like just a fun thing, and it's a musical as well.
It is,
right?
yeah, the singing is so good in this.
Right,
all the performances are excellent. It's very much a successor to Shaun of the Dead. It's like you almost imagine Shaun of the Dead as a musical with a female lead.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just want to see them in the background, just maybe.
Yeah.
And I've been pegging them to show up later on.
I thought that I was actually thinking, it's like, it would be so nice to see them walking through this. And these are the slowest fucking zombies you've ever seen. They are slow. Like, you want to talk about shamblers? These are the shamblers.
Well, how does that affect their dance routine?
Yeah, there's no dancing from the zombies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no,
I was hoping.
Yeah, no, that would have been a lot of fun.
Dead and breakfast, I tell you.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just good, goofy fun. It's not a great movie. Certainly not as good as Shaun of the Dead, but it definitely has a spirit of it. And the British just do that stuff so well.
They do. Yeah.
They really do.
And what rounds out your week?
7 out of 10 for that one.
And then you had a good week.
I did. Yeah, this was my first week was kind of rough. My second week, I had a lot of stuff I really enjoyed.
Right.
And then my last one was Await Further Instructions. This is such
I've done that one. Yeah,
it's such a claustrophobic movie.
So good.
I love the concept of technology as God, because that's really ultimately the story, is technology as a God. And the only flaw I have with this movie is you don't fucking like anybody.
Oh, yeah, you don't.
There's nobody in the movie you like. Like, even your hero, who you sort of like, you don't really like, because there's nothing redeemable about any of these people.
Right.
Well, isn't his girlfriend not too bad?
Her girlfriend is probably the most likable.
Yeah.
Right? But they pull her out of the story so early.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Right? That you don't really...
You're left with this family, you kind of want him to die.
Yeah, you don't like any of them. His sister, when she died, I cheered.
Yep.
I literally went, yes! When she died.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
She's out of there. Because she was horrible.
She was racist, homophobic. She was selfish. She was greedy. She was just horribly unlikable.
Right.
Right. And her husband was this milquetoast weak tit who just, ugh. Yeah.
Well, he was also kind of a dumbass, too.
And dumb. Yes, very dumb.
Right.
But conceptually, it was just so good. And visually, it works so well.
Christmas gone very, 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 very wrong.
Yeah. There's one moment that really irked me, though, where the mother is trapped in that room with a glass door.
That did bother me, too.
It's like, and she's being gassed, right? It's like,
pick up something heavy.
Yeah.
Or even your fist.
Yeah.
You're going to get cut, but at least the gas will
Wrap your shirt around your hand.
Yeah, and when he finally figures it out, I mean, it takes him forever to figure it out, and it was really frustrating. But this is another one of those ones that doesn't have the ending you expect, and I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I really enjoyed that, and like I said, the whole concept of technology outgrowing us and becoming its own entity, and becoming a god and wanting to use humanity. I really love that.
So your rating for it, despite its faults?
It gets a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it probably would have rated higher if it wasn't for some of the dumb shit and unlikable characters.
It would have gotten probably an 8 out of 10 if the characters had been more likable and they'd fixed some of the small logic errors in there, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like you had a pretty good week, and my second week is definitely better than my first as well. Number 9 for me was the Banana Splits movie. Number 10 was The Seventh Victim from 1943. Number 11 was Child's Play, the 2019 remake. Number 12 was Velvet Buzzsaw from 2019, the Netflix original. Number 13 was Humanoids from the Deep from 1980. Number 14 was Howl. Number 15 was Gonjiam, Haunted Asylum from 2018. And number 16 was a movie called Bliss from 2019. And I'll try to give you more details about that one, because otherwise you will find the wrong movie. Because there's a shit ton of movies called Bliss.
Yep.
Okay, number 9 was the Banana Splits movie. We've already talked about it just in the previous segment, so I'm not going to do it.
What was your rating on it?
My rating, like I said, I wanted to like it more than I did, but nostalgia still gave me a 6 out of 10.
So we were about the same on that one.
Yeah. The Seventh Victim from 1943. This one has intrigued me for a little bit. Directed by Mark Robson and written by Charles O'Neill and DeWitt Bodine. This is about a girl who's searching for her missing sister, and in her investigations uncovers a satanic cult in Greenwich Village.
Ooh.
So they're upscale Satanists, much like Satanic Panic.
Or Rosemary's Baby.
Because if you're a Satanist, hey, you're going to live in the suburbs, a really nice suburb area.
They're really trying to make that appeal to people, aren't they?
It does, yeah. I mean, they had a nice big mansion in Satanic Panic as well. So I'm like, there's something about being a Satanist that it kind of working out for people.
Well, when you look at Rosemary's Baby, that is an amazing building. I want to live there.
Yeah. But there's
even Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, there's a particular part where they finally find her and start uncovering this mystery, and they're really trying to make this girl commit suicide, which she's kind of glad to do. Like, she's scared of the world, but and really wants to die. And meanwhile, there's her neighbor in this apartment who clearly is sick, but we keep seeing her in the background. And then when the two characters intersect, and this girl's basically dying, this neighbor, and finally decides, she gets all dolled up, and because she wants to live, and she's going to live the best life that she can in her final moments, and go out in blaze of glory, enjoying herself. And the other one's like, I've always wanted to die, and then goes to her room and hangs herself. It's really interesting and kind of deep for 1943.
Yeah.
So
No kidding.
it was a really interesting movie. I kind of recommend it. It does drag a little bit, even though it is short at 71 minutes, but pretty cool. It's an RKO picture. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It was a decent experience. It certainly doesn't require a lot of your time. So one of these, when you're thinking about 40s horror and stuff, this is easily lost in the mix of the monsters. So number 11 was the Child's Play remake. We did a whole episode about it 2 weeks ago. Go listen to that instead.
There you go.
I don't need to get into it, but I really enjoyed it nonetheless, and I gave it an 8.5 out of 10 for the film itself. I really enjoyed it as a remake. It kind of does what we want it to do. Number 12 was the Netflix original Velvet Buzzsaw from 2019 from writer-director Dan Gilroy, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Rene Russo, Zawe Ashton, Tom Sturridge, Toni Collette, and it goes on from there. Even John Malkovich. It's a big cast, and this also started a small little trend of horror movies around painters and paintings that come alive, or mainly painting and people who paint. It's a really interesting one. I actually really enjoyed this movie. An unknown artist's work goes into circulation after his death, despite his wishes of it not being, and all of this person's darkness has been put into these paintings, and the reds are actually used real blood, and because they're profiting and exploiting off these paintings that were not supposed to be in circulation, these paintings will affect other artwork around it as well and bring it to life, and it kills the person who's profiting from it.
And I watched this one. This is in my next week, so I'll just chime in
Next
now.
week.
Where it's really an incredible movie where the viscera of these people, like how they approach art, is completely antithesis to like art. Art to them is just money and dollar signs and a means to an end, and it's not anything. So like it sort of loses its entire meaning because these people are involved, and it's not
it's
the
a commodity,
point of it.
not a I have seen this. It wasn't until you started telling me the story. I'm like, oh yeah, I did see this.
They don't care about art for itself. They don't care about putting it into the world. They don't care. And that's really their downfall.
Yeah, it sounds very Jackson, and it's very Jackson Pollock, because he didn't want his art out there after he died either, right? And I mean, do you want to talk tormented souls? Pollock is a good example of that. So obviously there's some inspiration there, I think.
I think there's some great characters in here, some great performances.
Absolutely.
And despite the long runtime, this is a very engaging movie. For the most part, yeah, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. Really enjoyed it. This is one of the better Netflix originals. I mean, I don't know if Jake Gyllenhaal's even given a bad performance, even if he's in a not so great movie.
Prince of Persia.
That's what I'm saying.
Prince of Persia.
Prince of Persia is probably the weakest one I've ever seen from him.
It's a beautiful looking film, and everybody who's in it is doing really great work.
No, I do highly recommend Velvet Buzzsaw on Netflix. Go watch it. Number 13, Humanoids from the Deep from 1980, directed by Barbara Peters and Jimmy T. Murakami. This is a very low-budget exploitation monster movie. It is piranha with feet. Essentially, this is straight out of the Roger Corman library of films. It's got a boatload of writers on there. Horrific mutations terrorize a small fishing village by killing the men and raping the women because these mutations have a need to propagate the species.
Yeah.
That's all I really need to say about it. It's stupid and kind of fun, but ultimately a little insulting when I watched it. 5.5 out of 10. It's 80s exploitation crap. It's and not at its best. There's nuggets of things maybe you could do with it, but we've already talked about Piranha, and that's a better movie. So it has very similar, like, you got this festival happening in the fishing village, and then all the creatures start terrorizing the people. So you can even imagine a remake just even being bloodier. It's almost the same plot. So not great. 5.5 out of 10. Worst of the week. Number 14 was recommended by my friend Matt at work. He likes werewolf movies much like I do. I hadn't seen this one. This one's out of the UK.
This one was so good.
It's good.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I liked it as much as you guys did, but directed by Paul Hyatt, written by Mark Huckerby, Nick Ostler, and starring Ed Spelliers, Holly Weston, and Shauna McDonald. Basically, passengers on a commuter train. The commuter train has stopped for unknown reasons, and they need to make repairs. I'm guessing in Europe, like, they travel from like England to the Ireland, etc.
Well, no,
because it seemed like it was a longer trip.
It is. What you can get is, like, in the UK, I think this is probably why I liked it, because I identify with the train journey, where you can go from like London to Edinburgh by train, but like it just might stop somewhere for like 10 minutes, and you have no idea why, and nobody's telling you anything. It'll just randomly happen.
Yeah. So
it's very rarely
in
a werewolf.
this one, these people are very rarely, so
Very
a small
rarely.
percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah, this happened to be that small percentage.
And in Ireland, I did have one where it was a train, and we did hit a cow, and that put us off for a few minutes.
Gotcha.
As it would. Yeah.
Simple conceit, really fun.
I think I liked it more while they were on the train. Once they got off the train, not so much.
Yeah, I did. I felt like it wasn't maintaining the attention as well as I was hoping. It's still a very solid werewolf movie, and again, British horrors usually very solid in general. I didn't like it as much as, say, Dog Soldiers.
Oh, Dog Soldiers is still better.
Yeah, but very good movie. Decent movie nonetheless. I mean, I give it a 6.5 out of 10 because, like I said, I think it kind of starts falling apart near the end. Number 15 out of South Korea is Ganjam Haunted Asylum. Basically a group of young up-and-coming YouTubers, essentially. They want to do a live cast from the Haunted Asylum in South Korea. This is a real place. It is on the top 10 on CNN's most haunted locations.
Oh, wow.
They did not film in the proper place, but they took great care to make it look like it. They found, I think, in an abandoned school or something, and set it up so when they're moving through the asylum in the film, it is following the floor plan.
It's an accurate recreation.
Yeah, they're as accurate as possible, and I think they did even get some exteriors of the actual asylum. It's a neat idea. There's this door they can't kind of get into that's locked, and other investigators have disappeared as they've approached this door. And that's when it gets, lots of little ghostly stuff starts building as the movie progresses. And then they're smart. They're like, things are getting too crazy. Like the lead investigator, who's kind of in the initial tent, he's thrown a couple of guys inside to kind of make it scarier because he's wanting to hit that magic number of 1 million people watching the live stream to attract the maximum amount of advertising dollars.
Well,
and they're going to split it amongst themselves. This is basically a get rich quick scheme.
Well, that was like that one movie I did, I think, last year. I can't remember the name of it, where it was one that kind of YouTuber where he would debunk a lot of haunting myths, and somebody promised him so many quote-unquote like online currency coins to go cover this area and do this sort of game where you can like conjure a spirit. So it's sort of like that, where like the stakes sort of get raised in order to try and monetize your online presence.
Yeah, but as things get weirder and weirder in there, more and more things happen that aren't faked. And they're starting to get picked off, and the real horror happens when they realize they're on the other side of that door but never actually walked through it. It gets pretty freaky near the end. This is a really great low-budget found footage style movie, which is rare to have all those words in the same sentence. Thought it was really good, really great foreign flick, really great in the... It can be maybe a little challenging because you're reading it. It's not in English. But I highly recommend this one. I quite dug it. Not everything was rock solid, but, this is a solid 7 out of 10. Pretty great in the found footage genre in general, especially for its low budget. They had managed to create a lot of great things with no cash.
Well, considering how much is like monetized for people's like online channels, this seems to be like the next iteration of found footage, because it actually makes sense that you would have this footage. Yeah,
everything kind of makes sense with the characters and what their motivations are. And it does pull a lot of the Blair Witch tricks. I mean, you think about what are you actually seeing? No, it's creation of mood, and it does that very effectively.
Awesome.
Yeah. And number 16 rounds out my week, and this is a movie called Bliss, written and directed by Joe Bagos, who did another movie in 2013 called Almost Human. This stars Dora Madison, True Collins, and Reese Wakefield. Sam, this thing was made for you and me. This is a low-budget movie. I describe this as Trainspotting meets Lost Boys with a dash of Mandy. It is... weird, psychotic.
See, I like 2 of those things.
This is about a painter who has creative block and turns to sex, drugs, and murder for inspiration. And she's been infected with a vampire virus, but they kind of keep the vampire stuff in the background for a good portion of the movie as she's going through this train spotting trip, and things get more and more crazy as she's trying to create this masterpiece. The ending, I wasn't quite satisfied with how the movie ended, there are certain things like, oh man, I wish they had just a few more $1,000 on this movie, but it's so good.
I still want to see this now.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking
this
I
is
might
when
lean
I think
that way.
about like 20 years ago when we were watching all these kind of weird little indie movies, and this certainly fits gloriously into those. Highly recommend it. Bliss from 2019. I'm going to be looking for Joe Vegas, more of him down the road, and hopefully people will give him a little bit more money to play with. Honestly, I wanted to see more within this world, but it's doesn't lend itself to that. The way the movie ended is pretty final.
Yeah, no, that's...
And be careful. Look for the people in this movie. It's Bliss 2019, and there are other movies. There's a shit ton of movies called Bliss. So if you go find this, you got to be specific at what you're digging for. Otherwise, you're going to find something else.
No, I'll keep my eyes open for that one. And I'm not sure if you noticed in the last conversation, but the ones I seem to enjoy the most are those weird little indie films.
Yeah, this is where I was like, man, this is exactly what I've been looking for, and it took me almost over 2 weeks to find it. Really, really enjoyed it.
Sweet.
All right, before we get to Trish here, I'm going to run the trailer for what we both talked about in our first week, In the Tall Grass from Netflix.
Did you hear that?
Someone out there?
Cal?
Becky! Something's not right about this. I think we should head back to the road.
Becky?
Travis?
Who are you? What's going on? I came looking for you! What?
How did you get here before us?
I don't know. My boy, he's lost in here too. This is nuts! It's only a field.
What's happening?
I'm never gonna find her.
You can find things, but it's easier once they're dead.
How long have we been here?
I'm not sure.
That sounded like me.
This field doesn't make any sense. Name one thing in here that does. You think this is just chance? We're all here for a reason. Becky! Oh my God. It's grass. It's just grass.
All right, Trish, let's close out with your week 2, 9 through 16.
Yeah, my week 2, you're going to notice a bit of a theme.
Oh, might? Okay, let's see what you got.
If you miss the theme, you're not listening.
If you missed the theme, you should go see someone. Okay, so my 9 was Paranormal Activity from 2007.
Okay.
9A, because I'd seen it, was Paranormal Activity 2 from 2010.
Okay, so 9.5 is part 2.
Yeah.
I think I might know where this is going.
Number 10 is Paranormal Activity 3 from 2011.
Uh-huh.
Number 11 is Paranormal Activity 4 from 2012.
Okay.
And then to break it up, Child's Play in 2019 is my number 12. Number 13 is Paranormal Activity, the fourth one, the marked ones. And then the one after that is Paranormal Activity number 6, the Ghost Dimension.
Oh my God.
And then Dead Body from 2017 and Love Witch from 2016.
Okay.
You really punished yourself that week, didn't you?
Oh, you did.
Oh, I did. I was
This
like,
is-
I'm just going to do this.
I've seen the first, I think I've seen the first 3, and they were very far apart watches, and ooh, I don't like that franchise.
Don't do it. I think, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss Paranormal Activity as one singular block.
Okay, let's do that.
And I will tell you why. Ongoing theme that I've kind of put down here. Toxic masculinity fucks shit up. Because you have the first film where the guy's like, oh, this thing can't come in here and deal with my girlfriend. I can totally take care of this. It's an unnatural entity. I'm sorry, fucko. You're not that tough.
Fucko.
Number 2. This demonic entity can't come in and mess with my family. Again, dude, demonic entity. You cannot do anything. Dumbass. Number 3, we get a little bit better where there's like the caring dad who does care for his stepdaughters, and it's kind of a little better arranged than any other one. So they kind of transfer the non-belief to the wife, but then we sort of get into like the background of this whole thing where there's a coven of witches called the midwives who are going to like bring forth like all these marked male sons to do like their bidding on earth, because like women can't do this, and is like, I'm sorry, any witch worth her salt isn't gonna fucking give all of her shit up for some dude. I'm just saying. So they don't understand covens. They don't understand any of this bullshit. 4 is okay. It's sort of just extending it to like a different area where the baby gets taken away. The marked ones, some good performances, some time travel, some going to a different dimension is actually kind of interesting.
Do they ever change the found footage format?
No.
Okay.
No, not really. And then the final one where it is sort of found footage, but it's kind of, at least they sort of expand upon it. You get really into it, because the other thing about 2 is the leader of this coven of midwives is some dude. Again. No. I don't think so. Pisses me off. But I mean, they do something a little bit more with sort of the imagery of it and sort of the creatures that are coming through, where they have like the specialized camera where they've modified it to like detect things that you can't detect with a normal camera. So at least that was somewhat interesting. So Ghost Dimension, I think probably the marked ones was decent because at least for the ending it was interesting and you weren't going past the same family. So that I think was probably the most interesting.
Oh, sorry, one was called Ghost Dimension?
Ghost Dimension's the last one.
I don't even think I knew that existed.
Yep, that's the final one.
Lord.
There's a lot going on here.
It's amazing they got so much out of that.
There's 7 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
You know why they got so much more out of it? Because they cost next to nothing to make, and they make millions of dollars.
Yes.
Because Val wanted to watch the first 2 as sort of a lead into October. And I'm like, why the fuck did they make so many of these? And I started looking at the money, the return on investment. It's like, yeah, they're making 400 or 500% return on investment.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and on the upside, the one woman who was in the first one gets recurring work.
Yes.
Because she shows up a few times. But yeah, that's my down home from Paranormal Activity. I have punished myself because I'm not a fucking fan.
And Child's Play we have talked about in a full episode, so we'll skip over that one too. But what was your just to summarize like where you would rate that?
Paranormal Activity?
Well, yeah, rate them, give them like out of 10s.
Okay, 1, at least I think if I saw this brand new and I didn't know anything about it, I'd probably give it like a 5.
Ooh, okay.
2, 4. 3, 5. 4, 6. 5, 4. No, 3.5.
Oh.
And then 6. Oh, it's well done, but we're going back down to like 5. Maybe on the outside. 4.7.
So it doesn't really get better than a 5. That's just like sticking a pencil in your genitals or something. Like why would you keep doing this to yourself?
Here's the weird thing. I think I have a weird thing where I go between masochism and hope. And
it can't get much worse than this. Oh,
it can't get. Yeah, I'm like, oh, things can't get much worse than this. Oh, yes, they can. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking I'm getting old. Life will eventually destroy me completely. Maybe I should just do it myself.
Through Paranormal Activity.
You must have spent that entire week mad.
Oh, I was furious.
She was a little surly last week when we saw her.
I was surly.
I know why.
I was surly. Yeah, and there was, I think at the end of all of those, I did drink a lot.
Okay, well, you got your full Chucky episode, so I
That
guess
helped. Oh my God, did that help?
nice help.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we know you like that one. All right, so you got two more
and then
there.
two more. Dead Body from 2017. The concept was there. I would have liked to have seen them done something different with it. It's basically this group of people are out in a cabin. It's like kids who have just graduated, and like there's one guy who's on the waiting list for Harvard, and like they're all going off their separate ways. They're in a cabin. They decide to play this game that's called quote unquote Dead Body, and you take pieces of paper out, and one of you is the dead body, and one of you is the killer. And then like, no, you were all there at the party. One of you is the killer. And like, if they tap you or something like that, then you're found as dead and you're the dead body. And other people try to figure out who the killer is. It's like kind of Clue, but without the board game or anything else. And it's just the people that are there.
Okay, so Clue and Tag.
Yeah, Clue and Tag.
Kind of like fun, actually.
It sounds brilliant fun. And it could have been an amazing film. But then it goes to like some people are actually getting killed. And then it sort of devolves into like something really stupid at the end.
Oh.
So it could have been great. Could have been great.
And it's interesting because that's one that I've skimmed over a couple times in my sort of looking for stuff to watch.
Yeah.
You're making me feel glad I just skipped right past it.
Yeah, I had that actually on
Yeah.
a long list of things to watch. I might just delete that one.
Initial opening concept, I would give a 7. Initial execution, 4.5.
See, this year I've been making a point of skipping past it. I think it says 5 kids end up in a cabin, 5 kids end up in a house, 6 kids end up doing this. I'm just skipping right over those.
Yeah.
Just because I know ultimately where they're going to end up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it looked like they were trying. There's some bits of humor that sort of land, but I don't know. They just didn't do any of it right.
Well, that's a shame.
But I ended it on a high note with The Love Witch from 2016.
This one's actually my first one for next week in part 2 here, but we'll cover it now. So,
written and directed by Anna Biller. Make her do everything. She covered like the lighting down to the lighting. Looks exactly like it would in those like 70s Hammer films.
This is very 60s, like
60s.
I mean the costumes, the hair. Everything's very 60s looking, and
the tea house,
the color, the color scheme, just the look of the town. Except it isn't 60s. It takes place in a modern day setting with modern vehicles, and she pulls a cell phone out of her purse.
Exactly. And she like pulls up in this very modern car, and I'm like, oh wait, this is a new movie. That's the first clue I had.
Yeah.
And this is one that you got to before me because this was also on my list for this year. I scratched it off as soon as I saw that you'd done it. I did not know that Trish had done it. So
yeah, she beat me by a day.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah. So yeah, there we go. There's some payback.
It is very a unique film.
A singular vision that really lands.
It's a little long, but for the most part, yeah, it really does land. I think it was a beautiful execution. Very interesting. This witch is trying to find love through spells.
Yes.
By making it happen artificially, which is a commentary on itself of I almost think like Tinder.
Well, it is, and it's sort of also another commentary where like she is having a conversation with this other woman, and it's like you just have to give men whatever they want. It's sort of like she doesn't quite understand. It's a very feminist tale, but a take on these sort of toxic ideas where it's like, oh, that's all you have to do to make them love you. I'm like, no, it's not.
And consequently, all of these brilliant spells ideas always go really badly and usually end up with the dude dying.
Goes really
and she's
terrible.
Never all that upset about it. She's like, well, damn it.
I know. Or when they start getting really needy, she's like, oh no, this is not what I wanted, but you did the spell.
Yeah, they're only needy because you did this.
Exactly.
There's such deliberate 60s style performances too, so it's not going to be for everybody, but boy, it is a really wonderful ode to old Hammer.
And the lead actress, like, she does look like she's from another time.
Until she talks. She sounds fairly modern.
She sounds fairly modern, but...
Yeah, this one I think is going to be another Tucker and Dale, because I see a lot of people talking about this one in particular, this movie in particular, just like Tucker and Dale, where maybe it didn't reach public consciousness, but horror and film fans are really loving it.
I think it is a instant cult film.
I think it got hamstrung by sort of just the lack of release, because I remember when it came here to Calgary, it was like only maybe a week or two downtown at the Globe, and that's it. But it should have gotten a much wider release.
Yeah.
The sensibilities of it is she totally understood how to make it look like it's supposed to look. And that just blew my mind. I never for once thought I was watching a 2016 movie, except for the cars. That's it.
Cool. So, Sam, what was your favorite from week 2?
That was a tough week, but I am going to go with Most Beautiful Island. No question. I think that just given everything that it was and how simple the story was, yeah, it's by far my favorite.
And the worst?
Oh, no question, Strange Events.
No hesitation.
None whatsoever.
Mine's an easy one, too. Really loved Bliss. I thought it was fabulous. Easily my best of the week. And, yeah, worst one, Humanoids from the Deep. 80s garbage. You know, this is definitely some of the more lowbrow stuff that we got in the 80s, and the 80s was a good time for horror, and this was not really among them, but guilty pleasure kept it from dipping under a 5.
not the funnest Corman experience?
No, but Bliss was excellent, and Velvet Buzzsaw was a close second.
It's really good, too.
And Trish, I'm guessing Love Witch definitely saved the week for you.
Absolutely. Oh, my God. Thank goodness for the Love Witch. Thank you, Anna Biller, for just making it and helping me through this very, very difficult time.
And I'm going to just take a wild stab that a Paranormal Activity of some sort was the worst of the week, if not collectively.
I'm going to collectively.
Trish just had a shitty week.
But I did it to myself.
Yeah.
So... these are my choices,
Yes.
and I'm taking responsibility for them.
Well, I'm happy to say I had a much stronger week, and Sam had a pretty great week.
When I was looking at my list, I'm going, that week was much better. I was a little bit. My first half was really shaky because I've got some really great stuff in my third week.
Yeah, mine was touch and go that first week too.
My last week is turning out to be a shit show, though. I'm going to say something about the 2 movies. I'll be quick because I know we're getting way over time.
No. They gotta wait until next week.
Well, these movies aren't even going to be on. I've actually taken 2 movies off my list.
Oh, you aborted.
I didn't abort. I made it through them, but they're not horror.
Oh, okay.
I made it to the end. And I'm like, oh, they're both genius films. They're incredibly low budget Spanish films, and they're classified as horror, and they walk that line, but I wouldn't call them horror movies, so I'm taking them off my list.
Yeah.
Okay, well, give them the titles real quick if you were.
One was called Summertime, and then the other is called Heaven and Hell, which you cannot, but you cannot find it on IMDb under that. You have to find it under the Spanish title, which I don't have written down. But I will tell you next week what the Spanish title was. But yeah, and I completely unintentional, same director.
Right.
I saw Giallo for the second one. I'm like, oh, Giallo, cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this isn't. And then after I finished watching, I'm like, oh, it's the same fucking guy. No wonder
Right.
It felt like one of his movies because it was. But yeah, they're very similar in style and the way he tells the story. And I would recommend watching them because they're both really great commentaries. The Summertime is so meta. It goes beyond meta. It's meta on meta on meta. There's 4 levels of meta in this movie.
Ooh, that sounds very intriguing.
Horribly, horribly confusing, and it's incredibly low budget. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, I couldn't take my eyes off it, but it's not horror.
It sounds wonderful.
It is wonderful. Watch it in the off season when you're not out of horror, and I really recommend it. They're both on Tubi. Actually, I think they're both on Prime. Actually,
cool.
Yeah, they're on both. One of the other of those, but I would recommend seeing them because they are utter genius in commentary.
All right. Well, that rounds out the first 2 weeks, but you're going to have to come back next week for part 2 of 31 Days of Horror. I'm not going to give you the full diatribe this week because you know where to find us. Make sure you tell your friends and family. We're on all your favorite podcast providers, even freaking YouTube. So spread the word that you love The Invasion, and we're going to talk about more horror movies that we watched in October next week with our final 2 weeks. Until then, I've been Jason.
I am always Sam.
And I continue to be Trish.
And we are out of here.
Humans are such easy prey.
Let her go!
Oh, I will. Beyond her wildest dreams. She will go into my mind, and I will go into hers. It's the greatest sensual pleasure there is.
You never knew pleasure or gave it, only pain.
You are evolving into a being that has never existed before.
I'm Crawford Tillinghast.